Chapter 7:11. They had reached the Saint King and Great Saint stage. Although they could cause the sky to collapse and the earth to cave in with just a wave of their hands. However, they would never be able to break through space and shake the world like Jun Xiaoyaro and Xiong Fei. It was as if two supreme beings were fighting each other. The scene was shocking. Are these the Saint Body and Overlord Body, which are ranked in the top 10 among the 3,000 physiques? Many people were so shocked that their eyes were trembling. At the center of the explosion, Xiong Fei's purplish-gold divine spear collided with the Great Baron halberd. The purplish-gold divine spear was an ancient weapon of the Overlord Body lineage. It could withstand the attack of a quasi-emperor weapon. Jun Xiaoyaro was still sitting on the armchair. He tilted his head slightly and channeled a vast amount of dharmic power into the Great Baron halberd. Bang! The Great Baron halberd burst out with halberd radiance as if a primordial beast had awakened. A savage killing intent swept across the vast expanse. Xiong Fei was forced to take several steps back. The web between his thumb and forefinger was shattered and purple blood sputtered out. This. Xiong Fei's eyes froze for a moment. He could not believe it. With his strength, he was not even afraid of an ordinary great saint expert. Jun Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, was able to block the attack by simply sitting in the armchair without even standing up. What did this mean? It meant that although Jun Xiaoyaro was in the initial stage of the Great Saint realm, his strength was far beyond that of an ordinary Great Saint expert. This is the strength of the Overlord Body lineage. It's just SOSO. Jun Xiaoyaro continued to take a sip of tea. This attitude caused the tens of thousands of spectating cultivators in the surrounding sky to be incomparably stunned. They had never expected such a situation to occur. They thought it would be a life-and-death battle like a tiger fighting a lion. However, it turned out that Xiong Fei was the only one fighting. Jun Xiaoyaro did not even get up from the armchair. This was ridiculous. Xiong Fei's purple eyes were red with extreme killing intent. He could not tolerate such humiliation. In the void, the quasi-emperor weapon, the Great Baron halberd, awakened and activated its own technique. The halberd radiance was tens of thousands of feet long as the emperor suppressed the heavens. Xiong Fei threw out the purple-gold divine spear, which collided with the Great Desolation halberd. Dazzling metallic sparks burst forth. As for himself, he threw a punch at Jun Xiaoyaro. No matter what, he had to make Jun Xiaoyaro stand up and fight with him. When this punch was thrown out, the fist light illuminated the sky and destroyed the void in front of it. This was the Tyrant Fist, the unique great divine ability of the Tyrant Body's lineage. The fist could dominate the heavens and shatter the stars. It could be said that even a true great saint might not be able to withstand Xiong Fei's Tyrant Fist. When Jun Xiaoyaro saw this, he gently raised his right hand and activated the power of 100,000 divine elephants. Behind him, the true body of the ancient divine elephants appeared and suppressed the galaxy. At the same time, Jun Xiaoyaro clenched his fist and executed the Kunpeng Infinite Divine Fist. He punched with the power of the divine elephant, the power of the Kunpeng, and the power of Jun Xiaoyao's sacred body of the ancients. Dong. Their fists collided. Golden qi and purple qi gushed out violently, each occupying half of the sky. The void trembled, cracked, and shattered like a piece of paper. Crack. The sound of bones cracking was heard, which attracted everyone's attention. Thump, thump, thump. Xiong Fei's body was forced to retreat. Blood spurted out from his fist. The tyrant was at a disadvantage. Everyone who saw this scene could not hide the shock on their faces. The tyrant, who had been invincible on the ancient road of ultimate, was unable to shake Jun Xiaoyaro at all. No, that's not right. Xiong Fei's eyes shone with cold light as he stared at Jun Xiaoyaro. You don't have an ordinary sacred body. Xiong Fei's words caused everyone to be puzzled. Not an ordinary sacred body? What did he mean? Jun Xiaoyaro looked calm and said faintly, "Oh, you can tell? No, that's impossible. Since the primordial age, how could there be someone like you? A sacred body that has broken the 10 shackles. That's impossible." Xiong Fei's eyes trembled. He was so shocked that he could not help but exclaim. Others might not have been able to find out Jun Xiaoyao's background, But as the tyrant body's archenemy, he could feel that Jun Xiaoyao's sacred body did not show any signs of being restricted or imprisoned. This simply caused his faith to crumble. It was impossible for a complete sacred body of the ancients to appear in the ancient age. Shackles from the heavens and the sacred body's curse were all restrictions on the sacred body of the ancients. Now, in front of his eyes, there was a living, complete version of the holy body. Xiong Fei's words were like thunder that resounded in everyone's mind. Many geniuses were stunned at first. Then, they were shocked to the point of numbness. Did I hear that right? Did the tyrant just say a sacred body that has broken the 10 shackles? Is the Jun family's son of God such a monster? A complete sacred body of the ancients? It would be strange if he wasn't a monster. After a brief moment of dead silence, the heavens and earth were filled with endless clamor and gasps of shock. A complete sacred body without shackles was enough to shock them for a year. Ji Qingyi, Sakura, Sheng Xuani, and the others were also shocked. The sacred body of the ancients and the sacred body of the ancients that had broken the 10 shackles were two different things. One had limitations, while the other had unlimited potential. Jun Xiaoyaro was calm in the face of the endless noise. He did not mean to hide his complete sacred body. If that's the case, are you ready to die? Jun Xiaoyaro said calmly. Haha, I didn't expect to encounter a complete sacred body. If I can kill you, I, Xiong Fei, will leave my name in the history of the tyrant body. There was no fear in Xiong Fei's eyes. As the tyrant body of the heavens, his mind was very firm. It was harder to make him back down than to kill him. Tyrant body divine form. Xiong Fei did not hesitate at all. He immediately activated the tyrant body's trump card. Suddenly, the Kuanpeng divine form, Great Bell Taoist form, Immortal Phoenix Feather, True Dragon Dharma form, Swani divine form, Pishio Dharma form, and other divine forms appeared around him. Although he did not cultivate the complete 9 great divine forms, he had cultivated 6 of them. As soon as the 6 tyrant body divine forms appeared, the world shook, runes boiled, and thousands of precepts appeared in the void. This was the most powerful technique of the tyrant body. Once it was used, it could destroy everything. The terrifying fluctuation made all the geniuses change their expressions. Even Sheng Xuani and Yu Ying sensed the aura of death. Obviously, if they were to face Xiong Fei's move, they might not be able to withstand it. Jun Xiaoyaro, who was in the middle of the battle, looked calm. In the void behind him, the vast yin-yang diagram of life and death appeared. It was like a black and white sky crushing down. There was also a chaotic aura in the air, and green lotuses swayed. The reverence of saints and immortal king descending to the 9th heaven were also used at the same time. Since Xiong Fei had used the 6 tyrant body divine forms, Jun Xiaoyaro naturally had to respond with the 4 sacred body divine forms. The tyrant body divine forms against the sacred body divine forms were like needles against an awl. They collided and crushed each other, and thousands of divine rays burst out. The sky collapsed and the earth sank, and the universe shook. This terrifying fluctuation caused the already broken Conqueror Star to split even faster. Humbly speaking, killing you is as easy as slaughtering a dog, Jun Xiaoyaro said coldly. He raised his hand, and a ray of light that seemed to have opened up from the chaos suddenly shot toward Xiong Fei. Genesis, Light of God. Jun Xiaoyaro was still sitting in his armchair, like an immortal god sitting high in the sky. With a raise of his hand, he sent down divine punishment and destroyed the world. Splat. The light of God pierced through Xiong Fei's chest. Purple blood splattered, and he felt as if his body was about to disintegrate. Xiong Fei let out a muffled groan as he spat out a mouthful of blood. However, a strange glint flashed through his purple eyes. He flashed in front of Jun Xiaoyaro. Then, he suddenly took out a jar and opened it. Black blood splashed out, splattering on Jun Xiaoyao's 7-colored sacred dragon armor. Jun Xiaoyaro frowned. In an instant, an extremely cold and strange aura appeared in his mind. The black blood seemed to have found a host. It corroded the 7-colored sacred dragon armor and was about to seep into Jun Xiaoyao's body. This is the sacred body cursed blood. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes turned cold. He threw out a punch, and Xiong Fei's chest was shattered. His tyrant body was about to crack, and he was sent flying. The corner of his mouth curled into a deranged smile, as if his evil plan had succeeded. It turned out that this was a conspiracy from the beginning. A huge conspiracy against Zhun Xiaoyao. You are not the tyrant. Zhun Xiaoyao's eyes were like swords, piercing toward Xiong Fei. Chapter 7:12. The crowd was dumbfounded. This kind of drastic change was out of everyone's expectations. First, Zhun Xiaoyao completely crushed Xiong Fei, piercing through his overlord body with the divine light. Then, Xiong Fei took out the jar and spilled the black blood on Zhun Xiaoyao. Finally, Zhun Xiaoyao said, "You're not the overlord." In just a few breaths, there was so much information that many people couldn't react for a while. Especially the sentence, "You're not the overlord." Everyone was stunned and completely confused. What's going on? Sakura and the others were all surprised and confused. Sizzle. Sizzle. The black blood on Zhun Xiaoyao's body was like a living creature. It kept corroding the seven-colored sacred dragon armor and invaded Zhun Xiaoyao's sacred body at the same time. In Zhun Xiaoyao's mind, a gloomy and cold aura emerged. It was as if there was a soul-sucking emissary in the unseen world who wanted to harvest the sacred body. At the same time, a demonic voice echoed and penetrated into his mind. The sacred body must die. His words were faint, mournful, and terrifying. It was like a poison that targeted the sacred body. The black blood was the blood of the sacred body of the ancients. However, it was the blood of the sacred body that was tainted by the curse. Zhun Xiaoyao knew about the existence of the curse of the sacred body. Some sacred bodies of the ancients would encounter ominous and strange things in their later years or when they encountered a catastrophe. In the end, they would either go crazy or die. Zhun Xiaoyao had experienced a trace of this feeling when he was controlling the sacred body of the fallen. However, he didn't care too much at that time. He could only encounter the curse of the sacred body when he reached the later stages of his cultivation. But now, Xiong Fei was using underhanded means to splash the blood of the sacred body of the fallen on him, trying to corrupt his sacred body. At this moment, Zhun Xiaoyao's body was surrounded by black gas. This kind of blood of the sacred body of the ancients was very strange. Even though the sacred body of the ancients was immune to the power of evil, it was unable to resist such corrosion. It could be said that even for someone as powerful as Wu Hu, if he were to be tainted by the cursed blood, it would be extremely troublesome. This was because it had nothing to do with cultivation. It was the restraint of the saintly body. Zhun Xiaoyao's body trembled slightly. From an outsider's point of view, it seemed that something was wrong. Big brother, milord, Ning Chen, little Shenxian, Ning Defy, and the others were startled. They, who had a trace of the saint body bloodline, could also feel the horror of the black blood. It could be said that if they came into contact with it, they would die almost instantly without exception. Wu Hu frowned as if he had thought of something. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. The tens of thousands of spectating cultivators also whispered to each other and made a commotion. What's going on? Xiong Fei's black blood has such a restraining effect on the saint body. I've heard that the saintly body lineage has a kind of curse since ancient times. It's very strange and difficult to deal with. Even the saintly body of great accomplishment might not be able to avoid it, let alone the son of God of the Zhun family. By the way, the son of God of the Zhun family also said that Xiong Fei is not the overlord. What does that mean? How can he not be the overlord? Everyone present was both surprised and puzzled. Everyone's attitude was different. Sheng Xuani and the 7 kill bandits in the dark had a glimmer of light in their eyes. If something really happened to Zhun Xiaoyao because of the cursed blood, it would undoubtedly weaken his strength. It would also give the other geniuses a chance to surpass him. Sakura was still very curious and continued to observe. Ji Qingyi's eyes revealed a thoughtful look. She looked at Xiong Fei and thought, could this be a conspiracy of the overlord lineage? It could be said that the current situation was completely beyond everyone's expectations. It was originally a simple and straightforward battle between the saintly body and the overlord body. Now, it was shrouded in a layer of conspiracy. There seemed to be more to it than meets the eye. Cough cough. Jun Xiaoyao, how does the cursed blood taste? The Overlord Ancestral Hall took it from the corpse of a cursed ancient supreme saintly body. Xiong Fei knelt on the ground with one knee, his hand clutching his broken chest. Cracks appeared all over his body, as if he was a broken piece of porcelain. Even someone as strong as the Overlord body could not withstand Jun Xiaoyao's killing attack. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyao was still sitting on the armchair with a calm expression. Although there was a black aura around his body, and strange runes appeared from time to time. However, he did not panic in the slightest. It seems that you are just a pathetic chess piece. Jun Xiaoyao shook his head lightly. In fact, he had sensed that something was wrong when he first saw Xiong Fei. It was not because Xiong Fei was a fake Overlord body of the heavens. There was no doubt that he was the real Overlord body of the heavens. However, he felt that he was not the Overlord body of the heavens. In Jun Xiaoyao's eyes, he should be more interested in the Overlord's strength. Unlike Xiong Fei, who didn't even have the slightest interest in getting up from his seat. Therefore, Jun Xiaoyao guessed that Xiong Fei was the Overlord body of the heavens, but he was not necessarily the Overlord. As for the others, they were all confused by him. They thought that as long as it was the Overlord body, it must be the Overlord. They did not know that although the Overlord body of the heavens was rare, it was not to the extent that there could only be one in each era. Everyone had been deceived by Xiong Fei. In other words, they were deceived by the Overlord body clan. Haha, so what if you are a chess piece? Now that you are stained with the cursed blood, the strength of your saintly body will be weakened gradually. The Overlord body will kill you and show the prestige of the Overlord body clan that she is invincible. Xiong Fei's eyes were filled with fanaticism. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Xiong Fei was not the Overlord. This made everyone feel a little dizzy. They could not believe it. The domineering Overlord body of the heavens, Xiong Fei, who was invincible on the ancient road, was not the real Overlord. Moreover, from his tone, it seemed that he respected the real Overlord very much. What was the identity of the Overlord who was respected by the Overlord body of the heavens? How strong was she? It was unimaginable. Damn, the Overlord of this era is strong enough to have a Overlord body of the heavens as her follower? It turns out that we have been misled. We thought that the Overlord body of the heavens must be the Overlord. Little did we know that there is not only one Overlord body. At this time, everyone came back to their senses. They had been misled. They subconsciously thought that Xiong Fei must be the Overlord. Now that there were two saintly bodies in front of them, why couldn't there be two Overlord bodies? I see. It seems that the Overlord Ancestral Hall wants to sacrifice you and weaken my strength with the cursed blood so that the real Overlord can step on me and reach the peak. I have to say that sacrificing a real Overlord body of the heavens is really bold. Jun Xiaoyao sighed. The Overlord Ancestral Hall knew that Xiong Fei would definitely be at a disadvantage in the battle with Jun Xiaoyao. The battle between the two physiques would be a life and death battle. As long as Xiong Fei came, he would not be able to return alive from Jun Xiaoyao. Even if the experts of the Overlord Ancestral Hall came, they would not be able to take Xiong Fei away alive. Therefore, they directly sacrificed Xiong Fei and weakened Jun Xiaoyao to help the real Overlord. Since you have been abandoned, I, the Son of God, will be a good person until the end. I will send you on your way. Jun Xiaoyao looked indifferent. He did not plan to subdue a Overlord body. A Overlord body would never submit to a saintly body. It was engraved in their bones and blood. Jun Xiaoyao attacked again. The divine light annihilated everything and fell on Xiong Fei. Lord Overlord, you will avenge me, Xiong Fei roared. He exploded with all his strength and rushed toward Jun Xiaoyao to fight to the death. In the end, he was annihilated into ashes in the endless divine light. For a better reading experience, please visit the mobile version of the website, Book 5975. Chapter 713. A heavenly tyrant body had died and turned into ashes. Logically speaking, this would definitely be a big event that would shake the entire ancient road. The battle between the sacred body and the Overlord body had come to a conclusion. But now, the scene fell into a strange silence. Because what had happened was beyond everyone's expectations. Xiong Fei was the heavenly tyrant body, but he was not the overlord. The real overlord had yet to appear in front of the world. This caused many people to be shocked. The overlord of this generation had actually hidden himself so deeply. He had even confused everyone. But when they thought about it, they felt that it was reasonable. The overlord was the king of the tyrant bodies. No matter how weak he would not be unable to resist Zhun Xiaoyao. In everyone's eyes, Xiong Fei was already an extremely terrifying genius. That was why everyone subconsciously thought that he was the overlord. Xiong Fei himself had never denied it. Looking at the son of God of the Zhun family, it seems that he had already expected that Xiong Fei was not the overlord. Yes, the son of God of the Zhun family's attitude has been very disdainful from the beginning. In his eyes, even the tyrant body is nothing. Only the real overlord is barely worthy of his attention. But now, the son of God of the Zhun family seems to have been infected by something bad. Is there something wrong with his body? Countless eyes fell on Zhun Xiaoyao from all directions. If there was something wrong with Zhun Xiaoyao's body, it would definitely have a greater impact than the battle between the two sacred bodies. After all, he already had the title of invincible among the younger generation. If there was something wrong with his body, there would definitely be many geniuses who would kick him when he was down. Not to mention that there were still the 7 defiant emperors in the dark. They might seize this opportunity to attack Zhun Xiaoyao. In the end, Zhun Xiaoyao drank the tea in the teacup in one gulp. The tea was finished. The battle was also over. Zhun Xiaoyao stood up. The blood of the curse was wildly spreading in his body. Even the golden qi and blood felt like it was about to be corroded. However, Zhun Xiaoyao was able to suppress it by force. As a saint physique that had broken through 10 shackles, his resistance to curses was much stronger than an ordinary saint physique. However, it could only suppress it temporarily. Later on, he would have to find other ways to remove it. Otherwise, the cursed blood would penetrate deep into his internal organs like gangrene attached to the bone. Of course, this was only slightly more troublesome for Zhun Xiaoyao, and it would only take him a bit of effort. The tyrant bloodline was too naive to think that they could cripple him with the blood of curse. Zhun Xiaoyao, how are you? Are you all right? Wu Hu stepped forward, frowning in concern. Zhun Xiaoyao was the hope of the divine body lineage. If anything happened to him, it would be the greatest loss to the divine body lineage. Senior Wu Hu, don't worry. Let's return to the desolate ancient temple first. Zhun Xiaoyao said. Ning Defa and the others also had worried looks in their eyes. However, in their hearts, Zhun Xiaoyao was already a godlike figure, so he should be fine. Ji Qingyi also stepped forward and asked, is young Master Zhun all right? Zhun Xiaoyao glanced at Ji Qingyi and chuckled. Why? Are you gathering information for the successor of the Ren celestial sect? When Ji Qingyi heard this, her expression also froze, a trace of stiffness appearing on her face. No matter what, she was still a woman. Being mocked so mercilessly made her feel awkward. Haha, it's just a joke. Zhun Xiaoyao smiled faintly. He flew up into the sky with Wu Hu and the others and returned to the desolate star. Looking at Zhun Xiaoyao's back, Ji Qingyi's expression returned to normal. Her clear eyes were filled with a hint of contemplation. Young Master Zhun, are you really fine, or are you just pretending? Not only her, but Sakura, Sheng Xuani, the 7 kill bandits and the others also wanted to know the answer. Do you guys think that the son of God of the Zhun family is fine? Why does it look like he's fine? That's not necessarily true. Didn't you hear what Xiong Fei said before he died? That was the cursed blood taken from the ancient cursed sovereign saint body. How could he be fine? That's strange. Could it be that the son of God of the Zhun family is pretending to be fine, but there's actually a big problem? Maybe, but no one knows what the son of God is capable of. There was a lot of commotion in the crowd. A small number of people thought that with Zhun Xiaoyao's strength in the past, he should be able to get through this ordeal safely. However, most people thought that Xiong Fei had used his own life to plot against Zhun Xiaoyao. How could he be fine? Zhun Xiaoyao was forcefully suppressing the curse, which would definitely cause a big problem. It could be said that if the news spread out, It would be more sensational than the battle between the sacred bodies and the overlord bodies. The 7 rebellious kings, the Black Hands, and the enemies in the dark would all have the same idea. Jun Xiaoyao didn't pay attention to the noise. He went to the universe and saw Tuoba Zhon, who had been waiting in the starry sky. Tuoba Zhon wanted to say something, but stopped. In the end, he didn't say anything. Jun Xiaoyao bowed slightly and said, "Thank you, Senior. I will remember this." "You're welcome." As long as the Son of God is fine, Tuoba Zhon returned the salute. However, even with his supreme-level cultivation, he still couldn't figure out the condition of Jun Xiaoyao's body. Jun Xiaoyao, Tai-Yin Jade Hair, Wu Hu, and the 300 guards returned to the desolate ancient sacred palace on the desolate star. Some talents followed them all the way, but they only dared to explore outside the desolate ancient sacred palace. As soon as Jun Xiaoyao stepped into the sacred palace, his body shook. All kinds of black qi and strange fog appeared. The demonic sound filled his ears as if it came from hell. There were also all kinds of strange black runes on his sacred body. It was like a statue of a god that was cursed and inauspicious. "Master." Tai-Yin Jade Hair was so anxious that she was about to cry. Ning Chen and Xiao Xianxian also clenched their small fists anxiously. "It's okay. It's not a big problem for now." Jun Xiaoyao's body shook and a few wisps of deity qi appeared to suppress the strange phenomenon. Next to him, Wu Hu frowned. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and said, "Jun Xiaoyao, how much do you know about the sacred body curse?" Jun Xiaoyao shook his head and said, "I don't know much about it. There aren't many records in the books left in the sacred palace. Not all holy physiques would have the holy physique curse. It was also a probability event. In other words, not all sacred bodies deserved the sacred body curse. Sacred bodies that couldn't break the shackles and were mediocre couldn't cultivate to the later stages at all, so there was no need to mention the sacred body curse." "Have you heard of the underworld?" Wu Hu asked implicitly. "The underworld?" Jun Xiaoyao frowned. He had indeed heard of it, but he had only read about it in the Jun clan's library. The underworld is known as the Xian Ting of the darkness. In the past, the supreme Xian Ting ruled the 9 heavens immortal realm, while the underworld was in charge of the reincarnation of all living things. In fact, the current Aeon burial ground is somewhat related to the former underworld, said Protector Wu. "Is that so?" Jun Xiaoyao was quite surprised. The underworld was too mysterious and eerie. There was only a limited amount of information about it. Its name was rarely mentioned even in the history books. "Senior, are you saying that the underworld is related to the sacred body curse?" Jun Xiaoyao was a thoughtful man, and he immediately thought of that. "That's right. It's related to some ancient secrets. However, I've heard that there's a dangerous forbidden area called the Black Abyss in front of the ultimate ancient road. There seems to be a trace of the underworld there. However, I've been suppressed in the Desolation Sacred Palace all year round, so I've never been able to go there," Wu Hu said. "The Black Abyss. Are there any clues about the sacred body curse there?" Jun Xiaoyao murmured. A mechanical voice suddenly sounded in his mind. "Ding. Congratulations to the host. The new check-in location has been refreshed. Please check in at the Black Abyss. For a better reading experience, please visit the mobile version of the website, Book 5975. Chapter 714. Hearing the mechanical voice in his mind, Jun Xiaoyao's eyes lit up. He would definitely go to the Black Abyss to check it out and sign in. Wouldn't that be great? As for the sacred body curse, to be honest, Jun Xiaoyao didn't care about it at all. Not to mention himself, he could deal with this situation. Even if he took a step back, he couldn't deal with this situation. Would the Jun family turn a blind eye and let Jun Xiaoyao be cursed? With the Jun family's countless years of heritage, would they be completely helpless against a curse? To put it bluntly, the Overlord clan was also gambling. If the blood of the curse could completely affect Jun Xiaoyao's sacred body, it would naturally be best. If the Jun family found a way to remove it in the end, it could also delay Jun Xiaoyao's cultivation and make him fall behind others. A real overlord would have more time to develop. At that time, he could still deal with Jun Xiaoyao. It had to be said that the Overlord clan was indeed very optimistic. No matter how effective the blood of the curse could be, it would still be a burden to Jun Xiaoyao. The Overlord clan is very calculative. Jun Xiaoyao sneered. Wu Hu's face also showed a disdainful expression. This is the usual trick of the Overlord clan. My sacred body ancestor was slandered by them with dirty means. No matter how many tricks they have, what use are they to me? Jun Xiaoyao didn't care. This wasn't arrogance, but an innate invincible Dao heart. However, you still have to be careful. Overlords have always been difficult to deal with, not to mention this generation's overlord. He has hidden so deeply that he even has a substitute. Wu Hu warned. I understand. I'm also a little curious. What kind of person is this overlord? Jun Xiaoyao's eyes condensed a cold intent. Logically speaking, the tyrant body's lineage was arrogant, and the tyrant king should be a fierce and arrogant man. Why did he start to play tricks and hide behind the scenes? This was worth Jun Xiaoyao pondering. No matter what, for those who dare to scheme against this son of God, even death is a luxury. Jun Xiaoyao's lips curled into a sneer. After that, Jun Xiaoyao went into seclusion in the Holy Temple's secret location. Before heading to the Black Abyss, he needed to temporarily suppress the curse. For others, this was definitely a matter that would cause them to be badly battered. Unless he could ask the family behind him for help. But for Jun Xiaoyao, it was completely unnecessary. Because he had his own methods. Jun Xiaoyao was the only one in the secret place of the Sage Hall. His body suddenly shook, and a total of 11 strands of immortal qi appeared on the surface of his body. These 11 strands of immortal qi were like 11 immortal qi dragons, coiling around Jun Xiaoyao's body. In contrast, Jun Xiaoyao was like a celestial being descending to the mortal world. If this scene was seen by others, their eyeballs would definitely fall out, and their worldview would be turned upside down, and they would doubt life itself. Since ancient times, those who cultivated 7 or 8 strands of immortal qi were able to shake the 9 heavens and 10 lands. They would be the trendsetter of that era. And 9 strands of immortal qi was already a legend. They were extremely rare existences, and it was difficult to find a few in the history books. If they could be found, they would definitely be a taboo figure, unfathomable. Even the ancient prince of the Fuxi immortal lineage, who was renowned on the ancient road of ultimate extremity and the successor of the human immortal sect with the human immortal flesh, were working hard for the 9 strands of immortal qi. And Jun Xiaoyao? Not only did he break the limit of 9 strands, but he had also cultivated 11 strands of immortal qi. As these 11 strands of immortal qi were released, even the strange curse of the sacred physique was completely suppressed. Suppress. Jun Xiaoyao's word was like a heavenly judgment. The blood of the curse was forced into Jun Xiaoyao's inner universe by the 11 strands of immortal qi. In an instant, the surface of Jun Xiaoyao's body was covered in golden light again, and his aura was restored to its peak. The blood of the curse was suppressed in the inner universe, and it turned into a cloud of corrosive black mist that spread out in all directions. However, one should not forget that in Jun Xiaoyao's inner universe, there was still the creation jade disc. This was an extremely ancient artifact that had the ability to suppress the creation of the world. Jun Xiaoyao had placed it in the deepest part of the inner universe as a cornerstone to suppress it. Now, the creation jade disc vibrated and circulated the power of creation, restricting the spread of the black mist of the curse. The situation was now completely under control. Jun Xiaoyao sighed softly. If the people of the tyrant body lineage knew that this would be the result, they would definitely vomit blood. They had given away Xiong Fei's tyrant body of the firmament for nothing just to slow down Jun Xiaoyao's cultivation. Now, Jun Xiaoyao had completely controlled the blood of the curse. That's right. Next, I have to think of a way to go to the Black Abyss and see if I can find any clues. It would be best if I can find the secret of the curse. If not, it will be suppressed in my inner universe for a short period of time. Jun Xiaoyao muttered to himself. The people of the tyrant body lineage would never have thought that Jun Xiaoyao had cultivated his own inner universe when he was only in the Great Saint realm. This was because it was simply impossible. It is the biggest mistake of the tyrant body lineage to judge me based on ordinary standards. Overlord, just you wait. Jun Xiaoyaro stood up, and his aura was extremely strong. However, after thinking about it for a moment, he retracted his powerful aura. If they know that something is wrong with my body, I wonder what kind of people will come out to take advantage of me. Jun Xiaoyaro laughed. This was a good opportunity to lure out the enemy. I'm really too evil. Jun Xiaoyaro laughed. Even he felt like a cunning old fox. The matter of the ancient road's 70th level was undoubtedly like a storm that swept through the entire ancient road. Among them, there were 3 pieces of news that made people tremble. The first was that Jun Xiaoyaro had killed Xiong Fei the tyrant body so easily. The gap between the two was like a chasm. The second was that Xiong Fei the tyrant body was not the legendary overlord. The overlord was someone else. The third was that Jun Xiaoyaro had been eroded by the sacred body's cursed blood, and his body might have been in a condition. Of course, this news was not confirmed because the onlookers did not know if Jun Xiaoyaro was pretending to be fine or if he was really fine. However, most people were inclined to believe that Jun Xiaoyao's body was in a condition. After all, that was the cursed blood left behind by the remnants of the sacred body of the ancients of the ancients. How could it be useless? As these news spread, the ancient road experienced a magnitude 18 earthquake. Many of the sky prides had different thoughts in their minds. Would the son of God of the Jun family, who was invincible among the younger generation, be challenged by other outlawed sky prides and fall from his pedestal? Would the 7 rebellious sovereigns, who were appointed by the heavenly path, make any moves? It could be said that the entire ancient road was in a state of turmoil again. Amidst these undercurrents, in the depths of the ancient road, in a realm that was opened up from the void, a voice that was as clear and pleasant as a silver bell with a hint of immaturity and anger was heard. What? Xiong Fei, who was used as a punching bag by me, is dead? No, I'm going to find that sacred body and beat him up so badly that even his mother won't recognize him. Although the voice was immature and pleasant, it was a little mischievous and unruly. A petite linglong with 2 buns on her head was about to rush out of this ancient realm like a little female Tyrannosaurus Rex. Yarrow, you're being naughty again. How many times have I told you not to go out? A hunchbacked old man in white appeared in the void with a smile on his face. He had dragon horns on his head and a white beard that reached the ground. Although he looked old, the terrifying energy contained in his body was causing the surrounding space to tremble. Obviously, this was a Supreme Being powerhouse, and not just any Supreme Being powerhouse. His cultivation level was at the 4th level of the Supreme Being realm, the great heavenly venerable realm. If some knowledgeable powerhouses were here, they would definitely be horrified. This was because this old man was one of the legendary powerhouses of the ancient Void Dragon tribe, one of the most powerful dragon tribes in the immortal realm. Chapter 715. The Dragon Clan was a huge clan with all kinds of forces and branches. Zulong in the Huangtian immortal realm, and the Dragon Men in the immortal ancient world. The Dragon Emperor Palace, an ancient faction that had intervened in the War of Immortality from other immortal realms. And the ancient Void Dragon tribe that had just shown up. The ancient Void Dragon tribe was extremely powerful. It was the most ancient and mysterious branch of the Dragon tribe. Long Aotian in Zulong had once obtained the succession of the ancient Void Dragon tribe in the ancestral land of the Dragon Men in the immortal ancient world. Even though the tribe was ancient and powerful, they only had a few members. The stronger a creature was, the harder it was for their bloodline to be passed down. It was a natural restriction. Due to the limited number of members, the ancient Void Dragon tribe did not dominate the immortal realms like the other ancient factions even though they were strong individually. They kept a low profile instead. Even their ancestral land was not in the 9 heavens immortal realm. It was inside the stomach of an ancient void dragon. At this moment, in the void realm that had been opened up, a voice rang out. Linglong, who looked like a little female Tyrannosaurus Rex, was trying her best to break out of the realm. It was a little girl around the age of 10. Her purple hair was bunned into 2 buns. 2 slender dragon horns protruded from its snow-white forehead. She was wearing a little white dress. Her limbs were skinny, yet they contained a terrifying power. Her face was around the size of a palm. It was pink with a hint of redness. Her eyes were watery with long eyelashes. Around her slender neck was a necklace with a purple bell hanging from it. She wasn't wearing any shoes on her feet either, leaving only a pair of fair, delicate, and translucent feet bare. She looked like an exquisite little fairy, the kind that would cry out when he threw a punch at her. However, only the old man in a white robe knew how terrifying the little girl's strength was. The little girl was currently glaring at the old man in a white robe. She was baring her fangs and brandishing her claws, revealing her white teeth. She also had 2 shiny canine teeth. Her snow-white feet stomped on the ground, and with a thump, the entire void realm seemed to tremble. Her petite figure shot out like a cannonball. The old man in white smiled and raised his hand. The power of a grand empyrean erupted and sealed the little girl inside. The little girl was irritable, her hair standing on end. The true dragon celestial body, great Beldao body, Kuan Peng divine form, immortal phoenix feather divine form, and other tyrant physique divine forms appeared on her body. Looking carefully, there were actually 8 types, 2 more than Xiong Fei. He was only missing one of the 9 great tyrant body divine forms. If an outsider were to see this scene, they would definitely be dumbfounded. The little girl was none other than the tyrant body of the firmament. What was even more shocking was that after realizing that she couldn't break free, the little girl suddenly revealed a crafty smile. She activated her bloodline, and the blurry silhouette of an ancient golden dragon appeared behind her. A terrifying might that was enough to make all dragons submit swept through heaven and earth. Even the great heavenly venerate of the ancient void dragon clan felt a faint sense of oppression. This wasn't the pressure of strength, but of bloodline. It seems like Yarrow can already control the ancient golden dragon's bloodline pressure. The old man in white smiled and nodded in satisfaction. In the ancient void dragon clan, bloodlines were divided into 3 grades. The ordinary ancient bronze dragon bloodline, the rare ancient silver dragon bloodline, and the rarest ancient golden dragon bloodline, which might not appear even once in several epochs. The little girl before him didn't just have the legendary tyrant body of the firmament, she also had the rarest ancient golden dragon bloodline. I'm afraid no one would have thought that this generation's overlord would be born in our ancient void dragon clan. The old man in white smiled brightly. To be honest, when Long Yarrow was born, all the ancient void dragon clan members were stunned. They never imagined that this baby girl would not only have the ancient golden dragon bloodline but also the rare tyrant body of the firmament. She was an unprecedented female tyrant body of the firmament. Later, people from the Overlord Ancestral Hall came to find them and confirmed that Long Yarrow was the overlord of this epoch. Even Xiong Fei, the tyrant body of the firmament, was only an assistant to this overlord. After that, the Overlord Ancestral Hall and the ancient Void Dragon clan went all out to nurture this unprecedented female overlord. Grandpa Long Yuan, why didn't you let Yarrow go out and deal with that sacred body? He killed my punching bag. How despicable. Long Yarrow clenched her fists. Her pair of watery purple eyes carried a hint of fierceness. Clearly, Long Yarrow didn't know that it was Xiong Fei who had provoked Jun Xiaoyarrow and fought with him. Now is not the time. You are the hope of our ancient Void Dragon clan. Nothing can happen to you. Jun Xiaoyarrow is too dangerous. Long Yuan shook his head. Long Yarrow had the backing of the ancient Void Dragon clan and the Overlord Ancestral Hall. However, Jun Xiaoyao's strength and background were definitely not for show. It would be very difficult for Long Yarrow to deal with Jun Xiaoyarrow now. It was also because of this that the Overlord Ancestral Hall came up with this plan to scheme against Jun Xiaoyarrow. But my punching bag is dead. Hey, it's all Jun Xiaoyao's fault. I'm going to catch him and torture him 100 times. Long Yarrow waved her little fists and gritted her teeth with a fierce look on her face. The sacred body and the Overlord body were mortal enemies. This was engraved in their bones, and Long Yarrow was no exception. Don't worry. The Overlord Ancestral Hall has a plan. Be patient. What you need to do now is to cultivate well and walk to the end of the ancient ultimate road to obtain a great opportunity, Long Yuan said. He knew about the Overlord Ancestral Hall's plan, but Long Yarrow didn't. She had always been cultivating under Long Yuan's supervision. Although the Overlord Ancestral Hall's method was indeed a little inappropriate, Long Yuan could only acquiesce for Long Yarrow's sake. All right then. I'll let the sacred body show off for a while. When the time comes, this Overlord will let him know that the Overlord body is invincible. Long Yarrow put her little hands on her slender waist and puffed out her flat and delicate chest as she spoke in a childish voice. How could one pacify the world if one's chest was not full? Everyone on the ancient ultimate road was guessing the identity of the Overlord hiding in the dark. In their eyes, the Overlord of this generation had hidden himself so deeply. He was definitely a cold, domineering, and arrogant peerless hero who was shrewd and had a heart full of dangers. TSK. It seems that the son of God of the Jun family has met his match. That Overlord is definitely an ambitious and ruthless hero. Many people were discussing this with great relish. No matter what, the Overlord would eventually appear. Many people guessed that the sacred body and the Overlord would have an ultimate battle at the end of the ancient ultimate road. Just as the entire ancient ultimate road was in an uproar, Jun Xiaoyaro was ready to set off. Have you really decided to go to the Black Abyss? That's an extremely dangerous place. Wu Hu frowned and asked. Right now, he needed to reorganize the 300 palace guards. Moreover, with his strength, he couldn't interfere too much in the ancient ultimate road. Senior, don't worry. I'll leave the 300 palace guards to you. When I'm done with the ancient ultimate road, I'll let the people of the Monarch Emperor's court take over with you, Jun Xiaoyaro said with a smile. Young master, aren't you going to play with little you? Tai-Yin Jade Hair sobbed. Because Jun Xiaoyaro had decided to let her stay here for the time being. The Black Abyss is too dangerous. If you go with me, I can't guarantee your safety. If Yu Chanhuan comes later, you should follow her, Jun Xiaoyaro said. Although Tai-Yin Jade Hair was unwilling, she still nodded her little head. She couldn't drag Jun Xiaoyaro down. Lord Xiaoyaro, we will definitely work hard to become stronger. Ning Chen clenched his fists tightly. Me too. Little Xian chimed in with sparkling eyes. I believe in you. Then, goodbye. Jun Xiaoyaro cupped his fists. He turned around and left the desolate planet alone. Farewell, my lord. Ning Defa and the 300 palace guards bowed 90 degrees with incomparable respect. Just as the news of Jun Xiaoyaro leaving the 70th level of the ancient road spread, waves were surging in all directions. On a certain ancient planet where demonic chi gathered, a faint demonic voice sounded. Gu Tiezi, you've been so busy planning your marriage with heavenly maiden Yuan that you've forgotten about the important matter. If you don't act now, don't blame me for being the first to act. If I can kill Jun Xiaoyao, the position of the young emperor of the Xian Ting will belong to me. My Kaiyu celestial system will also become the leader of the Xian Ting. There was undisguised ambition in this person's voice. The Kaiyu celestial system, the one with the strongest demonic chi and murderous nature among the 9 Xian Ting celestial factions. It was one of the origins of the demonic Tao in the 9 heavens immortal realm, together with the underworld king lineage. For a better reading experience, please visit the mobile version of the website, Book 5975. Chapter 716. Jun Xiaoyao's departure from the 70th level of the ancient road had attracted the attention of everyone. In fact, from the moment he left the desolate planet, countless pairs of eyes had been secretly watching him. It couldn't be helped. Jun Xiaoyaro was now the most dazzling existence on the ancient road. Every move he made would attract the attention of countless people. Not to mention now that Jun Xiaoyao's body seemed to be in a bad condition, it was even more eye-catching. What's the situation with the Jun family's son of God now? Some geniuses muttered secretly. I'm not sure, but judging from his aura, it doesn't seem as strong as before. Many geniuses' eyes flashed. Jun Xiaoyao's aura was now restrained, without the slightest feeling of showing off. It gave people the illusion that he had become weak. If anyone wants to deal with the Jun family's son of God, now should be the best opportunity. That's right. If they can really defeat the Jun family's son of God, they will definitely become famous and directly soar. Although some geniuses fantasized that they could defeat Jun Xiaoyao and reach the pinnacle of life. But they also knew that they could only fantasize in their hearts. Not to mention that Jun Xiaoyao's body might not be in a bad condition. Even if something did happen, with Jun Xiaoyao's strength, he could crush a group of geniuses with a finger. Looking at the many pairs of eyes secretly watching him, Jun Xiaoyao directly ignored them. After a few words with Tuoba Zhon, Jun Xiaoyao went on his way alone. Looking at Jun Xiaoyao, who stepped into the depths of the universe alone. Many geniuses also showed a look of admiration. Under such circumstances, Jun Xiaoyao still didn't show the slightest fear on his face. He even dared to go on his way alone. This kind of mentality was not comparable to ordinary geniuses. Jun Xiaoyao traveled through the universe at an extremely fast speed. With his current strength of the Great Saint Realm, coupled with the Spacebook and the Kuanpeng's extreme speed, even the starry sky flying ship's speed was far inferior to his tearing through the void. The Black Abyss is around the 90th checkpoint of the ancient final road. It's a forbidden land that ordinary people don't dare to step into. Even with Jun Xiaoyao's speed, it would take him some time to rush from the 70th level to the 90th level. After reaching the 90th level, the entire ancient road had almost reached its final stage. The true era of great battles has arrived. The geniuses of this generation who have stepped onto the ancient road will all obtain the greatest experience. However, I'm very curious. What exactly is the final trial at the end of the ancient road? Jun Xiaoyao muttered to himself. Just as he was deep in thought, his footsteps suddenly stopped. Can't hold it in anymore? Jun Xiaoyao looked ahead. A group of geniuses appeared with probing looks in their eyes. Jun Xiaoyao knew deep down that those small fries were nothing more than pawns used to test his physical condition. No matter how weak this son of God is, I won't use these small fries to test myself, right? Jun Xiaoyao shook his head and smiled. He casually stepped forward and waved his sleeve. Magical power rippled out and the void trembled. Puff, puff, puff. These geniuses were unable to resist at all and were directly turned into blood foam. Jun Xiaoyao continued to move forward. Every few days, many people would come out to test him. All kinds of space bandits and ferocious demonic cultivators had made a move. However, they were all killed by Jun Xiaoyao one by one. Could it be that the son of God of the Jun family is fine? Some geniuses who were secretly observing muttered. That's not necessarily true. What if the son of God of the Jun family is faking it? Moreover, there are no heavyweights involved. Someone disagreed. About half a month later. At a certain moment, Jun Xiaoyao, who was hurrying along, suddenly felt a chill down his spine. Whoosh! In a 10,000th of a second, a figure suddenly appeared behind Jun Xiaoyao. A blood-red dagger that carried a strong curse energy was aimed at Jun Xiaoyao's back. It could be said that this was a fatal blow. Ordinary outlawed sky prides would not be able to block this attack and would be directly pierced by the blood-red dagger. However, Jun Xiaoyao did not move. The figure felt as if he had fallen into a swamp, and his movements were slightly sluggish. This was the effect of the fourth anti-immortal seal. After this moment of delay, the back of the rainbow sacred dragon armor appeared behind Jun Xiaoyao's back. Clang! Sparks burst out. How can this be? The figure was slightly surprised. Looks like you're not a nobody. Jun Xiaoyao turned around with a calm expression. This kind of strength was more than enough to assassinate an outlawed sky pride. Someone wants me to kill you. Seeing that his attack had failed, the figure attacked again. Behind him, the shadow of a blood demon could be vaguely seen. It was as if an endless mountain of corpses and a sea of blood had appeared. Innate ferocious thorn, the figure stabbed again, piercing through the void. His technique was extremely precise and tricky. This technique. You're from the Blood Pagoda. With Jun Xiaoyao's experience, he immediately saw through the person's background. The Blood Pagoda was a famous assassin organization. It was an immortal force that hid in the dark. It was indeed a good choice to ask an assassin from the Blood Pagoda to test him. Unfortunately, it was a waste of effort. Jun Xiaoyao reached out and grabbed. The void froze, and the daoist chains pierced through it. With his current great sage cultivation base, he could activate the power of precepts with every move, causing heaven and earth to tremble and erupt with great power. Although the successor of the Blood Pagoda was strong, he was only a sage ruler. There was still a gap between him and Jun Xiaoyao. How can you be unharmed? The successor of the Blood Pagoda was a little shocked. As the successor of an assassin organization, he knew best how terrifying the effects of the cursed blood were. He had expected Jun Xiaoyao's physical condition to be very bad. If that was the case, he would have a chance to assassinate him. However, it seemed that he had made the wrong bet. Another fool who used his shallow vision to measure the strength of the Son of God. Jun Xiaoyao clenched his fist. It was as if the Five Elements mountain was pressing down on the successor of the Blood Pagoda. There was no suspense. The successor of the Blood Pagoda had fallen. This shocked many sky prides who were hiding in the dark. The successor of the Blood Pagoda was not some random Tom, Dick, or Harry. He was an outlawed sky pride. That's impossible. The Son of God of the Jun family is really fine? Many people were surprised. Jun Xiaoyao waved his sleeves and quickly tore through the void. No one could catch up to him. Seeing Jun Xiaoyao's attitude, some sky prides were puzzled. Could it be that Jun Xiaoyao was pretending that he was fine? In other words, Jun Xiaoyao had completely confused everyone. In the void, Jun Xiaoyao stepped forward as if he was crossing through space. Now, he had already shaken off those annoying flies. Jun Xiaoyao continued to move forward. In front of him was a belt of asteroids. Jun Xiaoyao casually shuttled through it. At this moment, countless formation runes rose into the air around the asteroid belt and turned into a cage that sealed the sky and earth. At the same time, endless ferocious chi filled the air. Terrifying beast roars could be heard as if an ancient great beast had appeared in the world. As the formation runes intertwined, huge ferocious shadows appeared. Each of them was 10,000 feet tall and stood in the starry sky like four ancient demonic mountains: Hundun, Daotai, Cheongqi, and Daowu, the four great ancient ferocious beast. Chapter 717. The four great ferocious beasts stood between the stars with an overwhelming pressure. Even an outlawed sky pride would be intimidated by such a situation. Of course, these were not the real four great ferocious beasts. They were only simulated by a formation. I heard that the four great ferocious demon formation is a long-lost formation. That's quite impressive. Jun Xiaoyao remained calm despite being surrounded by the four great ferocious beasts. Show yourself. Jun Xiaoyao looked into the starry sky ahead. Jun Xiaoyao, you're calmer than I thought, Yi Futian said. A hoarse voice that sounded like sandpaper being rubbed on was heard. Then, a black mist surged, revealing a figure in black demonic armor. The black demonic armor was extremely ferocious. It was tightly wrapped around the figure's entire body. Even his face was covered by a black mask that concealed his appearance. He was like a demon god subduing in the darkness. His aura sent chills down one's spine. He was holding a mace with wolf fangs. The ferocious aura he was emitting was not any weaker than the four great ferocious beasts. You're the successor of the Xian Ting's Kaiyu immortal lineage, Jun Xiaoyao said calmly. With Jun Xiaoyao's level of experience, he was naturally able to tell who that person was. He had learned about the Xian Ting long ago. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Among the 9 great immortal lineages of the Xian Ting, there was an immortal lineage that was at the edge. It was called the Kaiyu immortal lineage. Kaiyu was a legendary demon emperor in ancient myths. He founded the Jiuli demonic kingdom, which was once a great threat to the 9 heavens immortal realm. Later, the Xian Ting joined the battle and fought against the Jiuli demonic kingdom. The Jiuli demonic kingdom was extremely powerful. Even the Xian Ting had to pay a great price to annihilate it. On the other hand, the Jiuli demonic kingdom did not want to be eradicated. In the end, the two sides negotiated and decided to merge the Jiuli demonic kingdom with the Xian Ting. It became the Kaiyu immortal lineage of the Xian Ting's 9 great immortal lineages. Perhaps it was because of its background. The other Xian Ting's 8 great immortal systems seemed to be discriminating against Kaiyu immortal system. If Xian Ting were to start a war, the first to be sent to the front lines would be Chio's cultivators. When the supreme Xian Ting collapsed, Kaiyu celestial lineage also suffered the greatest loss. Because of this, Kaiyu wanted to seize the authority of the immortal court and become the ruling lineage. In order to become the ruler of the immortal orthodoxy, the most basic factor was that the successor of the immortal orthodoxy had to become the young emperor of Xian Ting. Under such circumstances, killing Jun Xiaoyaro was undoubtedly the best opportunity to increase his reputation and prove his ability. It was also the reason why the successor of Kaiyu Immortal's lineage, Kai Lai, was here to kill Jun Xiaoyaro. He wanted to prove that he was qualified to become the young emperor of Xian Ting. It seems like you already know my identity. Then you should know that others might be afraid of your identity, but I am not. Kai Lai's tone was filled with killing intent. With Xian Ting as his backing, he didn't need to be afraid of Jun Xiaoyao's background. Are you that confident in dealing with this son of God? Jun Xiaoyaro leisurely asked. Are you still pretending? You didn't give yourself away in the previous probing, and you still looked strong, but, Kai Lai paused for a moment before continuing, it is precisely because of this that it is even more suspicious. If you showed some weakness before, it would prove that your injuries were fake. You wanted to bait the snake, so you pretended to be weak. But you still pretended to be strong, so people would think that you were fine. In reality, you are only pretending to be strong, but you are weak inside, an arrow at the end of its flight. Kai Lai's tone was firm. His analysis was indeed reasonable. If Jun Xiaoyaro pretended to be weak, he would be suspected of baiting the snake. He had been strong all the way and pretended to be fine. It seemed like he was hiding his injuries and weakness. Hearing this, Jun Xiaoyaro suddenly laughed. What's so funny? Kai Lai was confident of victory. I'm laughing at you. You are too smart for your own good. Today, I finally understand what it means to be brainwashed is the most fatal. Even Jun Xiaoyaro was a little speechless. He had never seen someone who was so good at brainwashing. Clearly, he had simply pushed his way here, but Kai Lai had imagined so many plots and machinations. Although he did have the idea of tricking Kai Lai. Chimph, it's over. Kai Lai's eyes darkened, and he didn't say anything else. With the 4 ancient ferocious demon formation and his own strength, it was not impossible for him to defeat Jun Xiaoyaro, who was injured. Roar. The 4 ancient ferocious beasts roared into the sky, destroying the stars within thousands of miles. Monstrous demonic chi surged, shattering the void. The 4 ancient ferocious beasts charged at Jun Xiaoyaro. Kai Lai also attacked at the same time. His cultivation level had reached the perfected sage ruler level. Although he was not as strong as Jun Xiaoyaro, he was still a top-notch outlawed sky pride. Thousand destruction. Kai Lai held the wolf fang mace in his hand and smashed it down, bringing with it thousands of demonic patterns. When Jun Xiaoyaro saw this, there was only a hint of mockery in his eyes. Even if the heavens were to commit a sin, it was still possible to defy it. The evils brought upon themselves were the hardest to bear. Since Kai Lai wanted to die, Jun Xiaoyaro had no choice but to grant him his wish. Jun Xiaoyaro stomped his foot in the void. With a loud bang, an incomparably huge yin-yang diagram of life and death appeared. Like a black and white sky, it rose into the sky and blocked the 4 ancient ferocious beasts' attack like a shield. Then, the Chaos Seed Green Lotus vision appeared, and wisps of Chaos Chi fell, suppressing the entire 4 ancient ferocious demon formation. Seeing Kai Lai's attack, Jun Xiaoyaro did not even bother to use the Great Desolate Halberd. Instead, he activated a Sumeru realm energy and pointed the Thunder Emperor finger. Poochie. Kai Lai's attack was directly broken, and at the same time, blood spurted out from his shoulder. The finger had pierced through his shoulder blade. Your strength. Kai Lai's eyes widened. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyao's chi and blood erupted. It was incomparably vigorous, like a surging ocean. That aura was like an ancient god awakening. It was so powerful that it made Kai Lai's heart tremble violently. This is impossible. You don't have the ability to deal with the blood of curse. Kai Lai could not help but shout. He didn't make a move blindly. Instead, he made a decision to make a move after careful consideration. In the end, Jun Xiaoyaro was not as weak as he thought. An ant can't fathom the power of a human. Similarly, a human can't fathom the power of a god. As Jun Xiaoyao's voice fell, he clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched out. With the support of 5 Sumeru realms, he activated the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. This punch smashed apart a corner of the sky. Cough! Kai Lai was beaten back repeatedly. His eyes were as red as blood, and he let out a long cry. His vitality and chi were burning as if he was sacrificing himself. Behind him, an incomparably terrifying 6-armed demon god appeared, bringing with it an earth-shattering murderous intent. Ancestor's shadow, destroy all enemies. Kai Lai roared, the veins on his neck bulging. Jun Xiaoyaro sneered, and his body shook. Suddenly, 11 streaks of immortal chi appeared on the surface of Jun Xiaoyao's body at the same time. Immortal light overflowed, shaking the 9 cloud. Kai Lai looked at the scene in front of him in a daze. He was dumbfounded. Chapter 7:18. 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10, 11. Kai Lai's expression was a little dull as he subconsciously counted the immortal chi. 11. A total of 11 immortal chi. Kai Lai thought he was seeing things. He counted several times, but the result was the same. In the next moment, his scalp was about to explode. He was so shocked that his mind was about to go numb. 11 immortal chi, what kind of monster was this? Kai Lai sucked in a breath of cold air, unable to believe his eyes. He had also cultivated 7 immortal chi, which was definitely one of the top in the ancient road of ultimate. But now, in front of Jun Xiaoyaro, his 7 immortal chi was simply pitiful. 11 immortal chi wrapped around Jun Xiaoyao's right hand. The power of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist was simply unimaginable. It was as if it was supported by 11 true dragons. Boom! The fist light was mighty and spread out like the Milky Way. The void along the way directly collapsed, and cracks spread out. When the fist landed, the ancestor's shadow that Kai Lai had created by sacrificing himself was directly shattered. Even Kai Lai spat out mouthfuls of blood. His face under the helmet was instantly as pale as paper. His body was about to crack. Jun Xiaoyaro used the Kuan Peng's extreme speed. His figure flashed in front of Kai Lai in an instant and punched out one after another. Kai Lai only felt as if many small worlds were crushing him. That kind of pressure was simply indescribable. Jun Xiaoyaro used the power of 5 Sumeru worlds, 11 immortal chi, and the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. It could be said that he gave Kai Lai enough face. Even if he was the successor of an immortal legacy, in front of Jun Xiaoyao's attack, he could only die with a grievance. I finally understand why Gu Tiezi hasn't made a move yet. Kai Lai's heart was filled with hatred. He thought that Gu Tiezi was busy with his own matters. In fact, there was another level, which was that Gu Tiezi was weak and didn't have the confidence to deal with Jun Xiaoyaro. It's over. Jun Xiaoyao's final punch landed. The universe collapsed, and the Tao laws were scattered. The ferocious divine armor on Kai Lai's body was shattered, revealing his true body, which was covered in blood. His physical body directly collapsed under this heavy pressure. Only his primordial spirit was left, and it fled in panic. Jun Xiaoyaro originally wanted to use the Origin Emperor Dao sword to kill it. However, he seemed to have thought of something and summoned Mahavairokkana to suppress it. What kind of essence spirit technique is this? Kai Lai's Yuan spirit roared. It was one thing for Jun Xiaoyaro to be invincible in terms of cultivation level, monstrous magic power, and unparalleled physical body. Even his primordial spirit was so powerful, and he had such terrifying and unpredictable means. After being suppressed by the Mahavairokkana, Jun Xiaoyaro immediately used the primal chaos divine grindstone to crush it. That kind of soul-deep pain was billions of times more painful than being cut into 1,000 pieces. Jun Xiaoyaro, if you want to kill me, then kill me. What is the meaning of this? Kai Lai's primordial spirit was trembling. He could not endure the pain of his soul being crushed bit by bit. It's nothing. I just want to know some information. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled. However, in Kai Lai's eyes, this smile was even more terrifying than a devil's. Next, after Jun Xiaoyaro broke the primordial 4 vicious demon formation, he also forced some information about the Xianting from Kai Lai. I see. The Xianting's battle for the position of young emperor. It seems that the Xianting wants to promote a young emperor to compete with me for this generation's destiny, Jun Xiaoyaro said to himself. At the same time, he also received another piece of news that surprised him. He heard a familiar name from Kai Lai's mouth. Fairy Yuan. Fairy Yuan, Ling Yang, could it be? Jun Xiaoyaro thought in his mind and had a hint of understanding. According to the information Kai Lai gave him, it wouldn't be long before Jiyu Tiezi and Fairy Yuan held a marriage ceremony. Kai Lai had originally planned to go to the gathering after killing Jun Xiaoyaro to announce the results of his battle. Jun Xiaoyaro waved his hand and annihilated Kai Lai's primordial spirit. There was a thoughtful look in his eyes. Could it be that the person who controls Fairy Yuan's fate is Ling Yang, the Empress of Empress Wa's immortal lineage? But why does Fairy Yuan want to marry Jiyu Tiezi? What exactly is the deal between Fairy Yuan, Jiyu Tiezi, and Ling Yang? Jun Xiaoyaro was sorting out his thoughts regarding the marriage of Fairy Yuan to Jiyu Tiezi. To be honest, Jun Xiaoyao's heart didn't waver too much. Although Fairy Yuan did leave some impression on him. Of course, it wasn't something like white silk and beautiful legs. It was when they parted that Fairy Yuan danced on the mountain peak. It was peerless. There was also a hint of sadness hidden deep in her eyes. She was powerless to resist fate. This was what left a deep impression on Jun Xiaoyaro. Forget it. What I need to do now is to go to the Black Abyss. I don't have time to care about anything else. Jun Xiaoyaro sighed softly. It was better to forget each other in the pugilistic world. Jun Xiaoyaro took a step forward. Just as he was about to leave, suddenly, his footsteps stopped. Then, as if he had thought of something, he took out something from his spatial artifact. It was a jade pendant. The jade pendant was engraved with 2 intertwined fish. This was something that Fairy Yuan gave to Jun Xiaoyaro when she left. She said that as long as Jun Xiaoyaro crushed this jade pendant, she would come back to him regardless of everything. Seeing this jade pendant, Jun Xiaoyaro fell silent. Jun Xiaoyaro was, in fact, not a very emotional person. He was very rational. Whatever he did, the first thing he considered was his own interests. But sometimes, Jun Xiaoyaro would also be impulsive. For example, when he went to save Jiang Shengyi, or when he cut open his own chest and fused the sacred body blood essence into Jiang Shengyi's body. But there were not many people who could make him impulsive. Other than his family and clan, there were very few. Fairy Yuan, you fish. Jun Xiaoyaro sighed and put away the jade pendant. He did have to go to the Black Abyss. He did not have extra time to waste on other things. But this did not mean that Jun Xiaoyaro had no other way. He looked at the shattered godly armor that was floating in the void. It was Kai Lai's armor. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes flashed, and then he urged his divine power. Magic power surged, immortal qi appeared, and more than 10 drops of sacred body blood essence appeared. There were all kinds of Dao patterns intertwined in the void, and their auras were strong. Immediately after, these powers fused together and turned into a blurry but powerful figure. That blurry face vaguely resembled Jun Xiaoyao. It was a Supreme Saint Dharma body. This Supreme Saint Dharma body has about 1/10 of my strength, but it's enough, Jun Xiaoyao said lightly. Even if it only had 1/10 of his strength, it was still terrifying to the extreme. There was no need to worry about its strength being insufficient. Then, he waved his hand, and the shattered ferocious armor gathered together. The Tu-Shi ancient emperor flame rose from Jun Xiaoyao's palm, and he began to refine it again. As for Jun Xiaoyao's refining methods, don't forget, he had obtained one of the 9 great heavenly books, the treasure book. In addition to the ability to search for treasures, the treasure book also had an extremely strong ability to control weapons and refine weapons. Not long after, the armor was refined again, and it was worn on Jun Xiaoyao's Supreme Saint Dharma body. This armor was very dense, and even the face was completely covered by a mask. If he restrained his aura, even some Supremes might not be able to see through it at a glance, let alone Jiyu Tiezi and the others. Not bad, With Kai Lai's identity as a cover, we can safely enter the banquet. When the time comes, we can act according to the circumstances. In addition to Fairy Maiden Yuan, we can also investigate the situation of the descendants of various immortal orthodoxies. It can be said to be killing two birds with one stone. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled, and with a thought, he threw the jade pendant to the Dharma body. The Supreme Saint Dharma body took the jade pendant, restrained his aura, and directly broke through the void. Jun Xiaoyaro continued to go to the black abyss. For a better reading experience, please visit the mobile version of the website, Book 5975. Chapter 719. Jun Xiaoyaro and the Dharmakaya of the Great Saint split up and went their separate ways. To Jun Xiaoyaro, the most important thing at this stage was to investigate the sacred physique curse and complete the ancient road of ultimate destination. Jun Xiaoyao's great sage avatar tore through the void and advanced at an extremely fast speed. Although this avatar only had 1/10 of Jun Xiaoyao's power. However, its aura was like a divine king traversing through the stars, shattering the surrounding stars. Previously, Jun Xiaoyaro had already found out the location of the wedding banquet from Kai Lai. It was located in front of the ancient road at a place called Filing Star. That was the Supreme Xian Ting, a stronghold of the Fuxi immortal lineage. One of the 7 defiant emperors, Gu Tiezi. We will meet soon. Jun Xiaoyao's avatar said coldly. Filing Star. This was a holy land revered by tens of thousands of people. Although it was located on the ancient road of ultimate destination, not many sky prides dared to act recklessly here. That was because this was a stronghold of the Fuxi immortal lineage. As one of the 9 great Xian Ting immortal lineages, the Fuxi immortal lineage's prestige was undeniable. Even if the Supreme Xian Ting collapsed and the 9 great immortal lineages were divided. However, a single immortal lineage was more terrifying than many immortal factions. Moreover, the Fuxi immortal lineage was ranked in the top 3 among the 9 great Xian Ting immortal lineages in terms of prestige. They had even been the ruler of the Xian Ting immortal lineage. Therefore, no one dared to act recklessly in a place like this. Even immortal descendants and outlawed sky prides would have to restrain themselves if they came here. During this period, Filing Star was much livelier than usual. The reason was naturally because Gu Tiezi was about to get married. And his partner was also a famous beauty, Heavenly Maiden Yuan. Fairy Maiden Yuan was not only beautiful, but also multi-talented. It was said that not long ago, she had even become the next owner of the Goddess Lane. One could say that her fame was not weak. However, this marriage alliance left many sky prides puzzled. Fairy Maiden Yuan was indeed a 1 in a million beauty. But to be honest, Gu Tiezi's status was too high. Logically speaking, in everyone's eyes, the perfect match for Gu Tiezi should be Ling Yang, the princess of Empress Wa's lineage. One of them had the saint body of Fuxi, while the other had the saint body of Empress Wa. If they were to combine, it would be comparable to the combination of the sacred body of the ancients and the innate Taoist embryo. I seem to have heard that the princess seems to be unwilling to marry Gu Tiezi. There's such a thing. Then isn't Princess Ling Yang's standards too high? That's right. Even Gu Tiezi is not worthy of her attention. In this world, which man can be worthy of her attention? Some of the sky prides were discussing on the way to Filing Star. Sure, when we get to Filing Star, don't talk nonsense. If someone hears it and it reaches Gu Tiezi's ears, we will lose our lives, some sky prides warned. Outsiders did not know the relationship between Ling Yang and Fairy Maiden Yuan. They only thought that Gu Tiezi turned to marry Fairy Maiden Yuan after he failed to pursue Ling Yang. I heard that Fairy Maiden Yuan seems to have some connections with the son of God of the Jun family. Some people thought of this again. Why do I suddenly feel that Gu Tiezi is a bit miserable? The princess doesn't like him, and his marriage partner has an ambiguous relationship with the son of God of the Jun family. Okay, stop talking. We're almost at Filing Star. Groups of sky prides came to Filing Star to attend the marriage alliance ceremony. There were several reasons why this ceremony attracted so many sky prides. First, there were some ancient ruins on Filing Star. The sky prides who came to attend the ceremony could comprehend the mysteries at will. Second, it was said that there would be descendants of other celestial orthodoxies from the Xian Ting. Many people wanted to meet these descendants of celestial orthodoxies. If nothing unexpected happened, these descendants of celestial orthodoxies would be the tide of this era of great competition, the existences that led the era. If they could build a relationship with one or two of them, the benefits were endless. There were also quite a few people who wanted to admire Princess Ling Yuan's fairy-like beauty. Other than the sky prides of the younger generation, no powerhouses of the older generation came. This was because this ceremony was not considered a big one. It was considered a small gathering. Moreover, Jiyu Tiez's marriage partner was fairy maiden Yuan. If it were Princess Ling Yang, then there would definitely be many big shots coming. At this moment, in the starry sky not far from Filing Star, a group of young men and women were driving an ancient warship toward Filing Star. This group of young men and women each had a strong aura. Along the way, many sky prides were shocked and quietly retreated. Who are they? Some of the sky prides who did not know asked. You don't know? They are the young sky prides of Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy. Someone replied. What? Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy? That demonic orthodoxy? The sky prides who did not know were wary and hurriedly retreated. Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy had a bad reputation in the immortal domain. In the past, whenever the Xian Ting launched an attack, Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy would be the first to be sent out. As time passed, Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy's ferocious reputation spread throughout the immortal domain. Everyone knew that Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy was the most ferocious among the 9 great Xian Ting orthodoxies. On the deck of the warship, a young sky pride from Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy, Kaiyu, complained, "Why did we have to come to Jiyu Tiez's marriage?" Hearing this, the other sky prides from Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy nodded in agreement. That's right. Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy has nothing to do with Fuxi Celestial Orthodoxy. Mph. When Fuxi Celestial Orthodoxy was in charge of the Xian Ting, they used many of us as cannon fodder. Many of the sky prides from Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy looked at them with hostility. The reason was that when Fuxi Celestial Orthodoxy was in charge of the Xian Ting, they were bossy and arrogant towards Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy. It was as if they treated Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy as captive sinners. This made Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy extremely disgusted by Fuxi Celestial Orthodoxy. This is Big Brother Kai Lai's order. Do you have a problem with that? A cold female voice was heard. It was a tall and slender woman wearing a black soft armor with a cold expression. Hearing this, Kaiyu and the other sky prides fell silent. The cold woman's name was Kai Long, an outlawed sky pride of Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy. Among the younger generation, she was like a big sister. Sister Kai Long, why does Big Brother Kai Lai want us to attend Jiyu Tiez's wedding? Kaiyu asked. That's right. Master Kai Lai and Jiyu Tiezi don't have a good relationship. They even had a conflict because of the immortal orthodoxy contest. The other sky prides chimed in. You don't have to worry about that. Big Brother Kai Lai has his own plans. I believe that Big Brother Kai Lai will give us a surprise at this wedding. Kai Long's long and beautiful eyes had a bright luster. One could vaguely see a trace of longing and admiration. Kai Lai had always been the role model of Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy's younger generation. In the hearts of Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy's younger generation, Kai Lai was invincible. Kai Long naturally admired Kai Lai greatly as well. The group landed on Filing Star. As far as the eye could see, there was an endless stretch of luxurious palaces. It was incomparably glorious, like an ancient celestial palace. All kinds of spiritual mountains and ancient ruins were scattered around, with clouds and rosy clouds. It was a spectacular sight. The entire Filing Star was filled with spiritual chi, like an immortal's paradise. When the younger generation of Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy saw this scene, there was a hint of jealousy in their eyes. Filing Star was only one of Fuxi Celestial Orthodoxy's strongholds, but it was even better than Kaiyu Celestial Orthodoxy's cultivation grounds. Let's go. Kai Long waved her hand, and prepared to enter with the group of sky prides of Kaiyu celestial orthodoxy. At this time, a playful voice suddenly rang out. Yo, why are you sinners here too? I don't think Master Gu Tiezi invited Kaiyu celestial orthodoxy, right? For a better reading experience, please visit the mobile version of the website, Book 5975. Chapter 720. Hearing this, Kai Long and the rest's expression turned cold. They looked over and saw a few young men and women dressed in luxurious clothes. They had extraordinary appearances and gave off an aura of superiority. They stared at them with playful expressions. They were the sky prides of Fushi Immortal System. Kai Long, Kai Yu, and the others' gazes turned extremely cold when they saw the condescending attitude and how they called them sinful servants. You'd better watch your words. Kai Long's beautiful eyes were cold as she spoke. Hehe, it's just the truth. One of the men chuckled as he sized up Kai Long's slender figure that was wrapped in black soft armor. Kai Long frowned. Kai Yu and the rest by the side were enraged until their faces and necks turned red. Let's go. Kai Long ignored them and was about to lead the group in from the side. As the big sister of Kaiyu Immortal System's younger generation, she was quite calm. Wait, Lord Gu Tiezi didn't invite you, so you're trespassing. The leader said lazily. You. Kaiyu and the rest clenched their fists. As one of the 9 great immortal systems of Xianting, they didn't need to be notified. They could come whenever they wanted. But now, they were being discriminated against. If it wasn't for Big Brother Kai Lai, we wouldn't have come to this wedding. Kaiyu said coldly. Kai Lai, hearing this name, the sky prides of Fushi Immortal System turned serious. As the successor of Kaiyu Immortal System, Kai Lai was indeed powerful. However, they had Gu Tiezi behind them, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Even Kai Lai couldn't act presumptuously in front of Fushi Immortal System. The air was filled with the coldness of confrontation. At this time, another group of sky prides arrived from the void. The one in the lead was a pretty young girl wearing a flowery silk dress. Her silky hair was like a waterfall. Her pretty face was fair, and her bright eyes were dazzling. She was like a skylark, beautiful and agile, attracting everyone's attention. It's the successor of the elite immortal guard, Wei Qianqian. Some of the prodigies were shocked. Fushi's group cupped their fists and smiled. Greetings, Miss Qianqian. Thank you for coming to Sir Gu Tiezi's wedding. Their attitude towards the prodigies of Jingwei Immortal System was completely different from Kaiyu Immortal System. Hehe, I'm just here to join in the fun. Wei Qianqian giggled. Her lively eyes turned slightly and landed on Kai Long and the others. After taking a glance, he retracted his gaze. Kaiyu Immortal's lineage was considered a marginal existence among the 9 great immortal lineages. She did not pay too much attention to it and went straight in. Seeing this scene, Kaiyu and the others were even more infuriated. This contrast in attitude made them feel even more humiliated. Are you going to stop us here? Kai Long said coldly. The male leader of Fushi Immortal System glanced at Kai Long and smiled. It's not impossible. If you can be a little more humble, especially you, I might let you in. Kai Long was wearing a black soft armor. She was tall and slim, and her face was cold. She looked very domineering. This time, not to mention Kai Yu's group, even Kai Long's expression was extremely cold. In her mind, other than Kai Lai, no one else was qualified to make her submit. Just as the conflict was about to escalate, the void in the distant stars suddenly trembled. A huge spatial crack was torn open. What's going on? The surrounding prodigies were alarmed and looked over. A dark figure stepped out from the crack, like a demon king coming out of seclusion. That figure was wearing a cold black armor, with hideous bone spikes extending from his body. With every step he took, the void trembled. Such a strong aura, who is that? Seems like the mysterious successor of Kaiyu Immortal System. What, his Kai Lai? Many people in all directions were surprised. In fact, it was the first time most of the prodigies were seeing Kai Lai. Because Kai Lai was usually in seclusion, he was very mysterious and low-key. Kaiyu Immortal System was also very low-key, so among the successors of the 9 great immortal systems. Kai Lai was definitely the one who was least known by others. I heard that Kai Lai wasn't the most outstanding one among the successors of the immortal systems, but it seems like that's not the case. That's right. Kai Lai's aura is simply too powerful. Feeling the suffocating pressure, many sky prides exclaimed in bewilderment. On the other side, Kai Long, Kai Yu, and the rest were pleasantly surprised when they saw that familiar figure. Kai Long's eyes were especially bright. She felt that Kai Lai seemed to have changed into a different person. His aura was much stronger than before. Is this the surprise Big Brother Kai Lai gave us? Kai Long was overjoyed. In fact, Kai Long was right. Under the armor, Kai Lai was indeed a different person. Is this the stronghold of Fuxi immortal system? Under the black armor and mask, Jun Xiaoyao's avatar sized up everything in front of him. He landed and was about to enter. Big Brother Kai Lai, Kai Long, Kai Yu, and the rest came forward with respect. Jun Xiaoyao looked at the people in front of him. If he was not mistaken, they were from Kai Yu immortal system. Jun Xiaoyao did not pay too much attention to it, intending to enter right away. However, the prodigies of Fuxi immortal system blocked his way. Seeing that Jun Xiaoyao ignored him, Kai Long was stunned and a bitter smile appeared on his face. Kai Lai's personality was cold and aloof. They were used to it. Kai Lai, I don't think Lord Jiu Tiezi invited you. The leader of the prodigies said firmly. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes flashed with a faint light. It seemed that the 9 great immortal systems of Xianting were not as united as they seemed to have their own internal conflicts. However, it made sense. How could such a large and complicated organization not have any conflicts? Not to mention that the 9 great immortal systems belonged to different branches of inheritance. Unlike the Jun family, which was connected by bloodline, they were united internally. Jun Xiaoyao couldn't be bothered to deal with those nobodies and stepped inside right away. Before these prodigies could say anything, a powerful magical power spread out. Puff, puff, puff. The prodigies of Fuxi immortal system were sent flying while vomiting blood. All their bones were shattered. Each of them fell limply to the ground like a pile of mud. Their cultivations were completely crippled, and they all let out screams of terror and pain. This scene left all the sky prides in the area in shock. In Fuxi immortal system's stronghold, in front of Jiu Tiezi's wedding banquet, he crippled the prodigies of Fuxi immortal system. This was a slap in the face. Not to mention the others, even Kai Long, Kai Yu, and the others were shocked. In their minds, although Kai Lai was aloof and arrogant, he could not be so domineering. Not to mention that he was in Fuxi immortal system's territory. Compared to the shock of the others, Jun Xiaoyao's expression was indifferent. If he was not afraid of trouble, he would not mind killing these ants that blocked his way. Jun Xiaoyao went straight in. After a brief moment of shock, the prodigies of Kai Yu immortal system were overjoyed, feeling proud and elated. Big Brother Kai Lai is awesome. Kai Yu and the others said in admiration. Kai Long's beautiful eyes were also watery. A rare bashful smile appeared on her cold face. Big Brother Kai Lai, are you helping me vent my anger? Thinking of this, Kai Long's heart was filled with sweetness. For a better reading experience, please visit the mobile website, Book 5975. Chapter 721. On the Flying Spirit Star, many sky prides were dumbfounded by the scene before them. The geniuses of Fuxi immortal lineage had their bones broken and their cultivation crippled. They were in a sorry state. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, no one would believe that someone dared to cripple Fuxi immortal system's sky prides in Fuxi immortal system's territory. Moreover, it happened right before Jiu Tiezi's wedding banquet. TSK. Isn't that successor of Kai Yu immortal system a bit too tough? Many people exclaimed. There were also a few people who knew the inside story. They were puzzled and said, that's not right. Although Kai Lai had clashed with the ancient prince before, the ancient prince always had the upper hand and Kai Lai always suffered. Why is Kai Lai so strong now? This was the point that many people were puzzled. Fuxi immortal system had always been superior to Kai Yu immortal system. Therefore, although Kai Lai and Jiu Tiezi didn't get along in the past, Kai Lai always took a step back in the end. Could it be that Kai Lai was enlightened now? Some people were intrigued and followed. Awesome literature website, who knows, they might be able to witness a great show today. Jun Xiaoyaro ignored the commotion outside and strolled leisurely in Fushi Immortal Systems training hall. Had it not been for his identity as Kai Lai, Jun Xiaoyaro would have been surrounded before he even reached Filing Star if he were to show up in public. It would have been impossible for him to enter. Fushi Immortal Systems Foundation is not bad. Jun Xiaoyaro muttered to himself. Immortal mountains were stacked and spiritual lakes rippled. There were all kinds of rare beasts jumping around. All kinds of 1,000-year-old and 10,000-year-old herbs were everywhere like cabbages. Many sky prides who came to the wedding banquet were having a great time picking them. This was one of the benefits of attending the banquet. Jubing Chinese TSK. Not far behind Jun Xiaoyaro were Kai Long, Kai Yu, and the others. Their eyes were filled with reverence. However, they didn't dare to disturb Jun Xiaoyaro and could only follow behind him with a respectful expression. I wonder what their expressions will be when they find out that the truth has been exposed. Jun Xiaoyaro strolled all the way there, and no one dared to provoke him. Within this spirit land, there were quite a number of ruins and cultivation grounds. One could see many geniuses cultivating within them. These ruins were normally not open to the public. They were only open for a few days because it was Gu Tiez's wedding banquet. Jun Xiaoyaro only glanced at these ruins and wasn't particularly interested in them. Although there were some rare ruins, the Jun family's residence. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyaro suddenly heard a sword's clang. It was as if there were thousands of swords clanging, clang, clang, clang. He looked over. On the mountain peak in the distance, there was a withered stalk of grass standing there. There were 9 leaves on the grass and they were all yellow and withered. What was even more shocking was that around the stalk of grass, there were countless sword lights moving in the void, tearing the space apart. Many sky prides were sitting cross-legged around the mountain. However, because the sword lights were too powerful, they could only stay far away. Hey, that's... Jun Xiaoyaro showed a hint of interest. Finally, there was an ancient ruin in the Fushi Immortal Orthodoxy that piqued his interest. He stepped forward without any hesitation. The sky prides who had been sitting cross-legged around the mountain peak were all startled, and their faces were filled with astonishment. Who is he? How dare he approach that place? Isn't he afraid of being cut to pieces by the sword lights? His Kai Lai, the successor of Kai Yu Immortal Orthodoxy. I didn't expect him to be here. TSK, that guy crippled a bunch of Fushi Immortal Orthodoxy's sky prides. Jun Xiaoyaro attracted the attention of everyone around him. Many people looked interested in him. Even a sage would be in mortal danger if he approached that grass. After getting closer, Jun Xiaoyao's eyes showed a hint of understanding. I see, it has something to do with that ancient plant-type great evil. Jun Xiaoyaro understood. He was born in a clan of the ancients, so he could see through it at a glance. This withered grass was the legendary 9-leaf swordgrass. 9-leaf swordgrass was a plant-type powerhouse in the primordial era. Although it was just a grass, it was comparable to the true dragon, divine phoenix, Qilin, and Kuan Peng during the primordial era. The 9 leaves could cut down the sun, moon, and stars. In ancient times, there was a sky pride who refined a single leaf of the 9-leaf swordgrass and became a supreme swordsman. This showed how powerful the 9-leaf swordgrass was. The grass symbol sword technique of the 9-leaf swordgrass is comparable to the Kuan Peng's Grand Theurgy and the Thunder Emperor's Grand Theurgy. Jun Xiaoyaro thought to himself. Although the 9-leaf swordgrass on the mountain peak was not the strongest 9-leaf swordgrass in ancient times, it was still valuable enough. He did not expect to find such a treasure in the Fushi Immortal Systems dojo. Jun Xiaoyaro would be a fool if he did not take advantage of the situation. Moreover, if he could learn the grass symbol sword technique, Gu Tiez's expression would be very interesting when he found out the truth. Jun Xiaoyaro did not hesitate and stepped towards the peak, wanting to learn the grass symbol sword technique. Is Kai Lai crazy? How dare he approach the remains of the 9-leaf sword grass? Is he trying to learn the grass symbol sword technique? How is that possible? Even Sir Gu Tiezi could only learn a small part of the grass symbol sword technique from it. Many people in all directions were astonished. Especially those from the Fushi immortal system. Their eyes were filled with coldness and disdain. If not for the fact that it was Gu Tiezi's wedding day, it would not be appropriate to make a move. They would not allow the Kaiyu immortal system to be so arrogant. That Kai Lai is dreaming if he wants to learn the grass symbol sword technique. Even Sir Gu Tiezi could only learn about 30 to 40% of it. Does he think he can compete with Sir Gu Tiezi? Forget it, just treat him as a clown. When Sir Gu Tiezi comes out, he will still be a coward. Those from the Fushi immortal system said with disdain. Kai Long, Kai Yu, and the others also showed a hint of anxiety. They were afraid that something would happen to the Kai Lai in their minds. But to be honest, if Kai Lai was here, he might be injured if he tried to get close to the nine-leaf sword grass. But now, under the armor was Jun Xiaoyao's avatar. Every step he took shook the void around him. Countless sword lights in the surroundings were shattered. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, Jun Xiaoyao sat cross-legged in front of the withered nine-leaf sword grass and began to learn. This caused everyone in the surroundings to feel extremely shocked. Those from the Fushi immortal system felt their cheeks burning as if they were slapped in the face. Big brother Kai Lai is indeed invincible. Kai Yu and the other Sky Prides were so excited that their faces turned red. This was the first time the Sky Prides of the Kaiyu immortal system felt so proud. Kai Long's beautiful eyes looked at the figure sitting cross-legged on the mountain peak like a demon god. Her eyes were filled with emotions. She felt that Kai Lai's transformation was too great. His strength and strength were not the same as before. What kind of opportunity did big brother Kai Lai get to change so much? Although Kai Long had doubts in her heart, she was also happy from the bottom of her heart. In the distance, a beautiful figure appeared. Her beautiful eyes blinked when she saw Jun Xiaoyao sitting cross-legged in front of the nine-leaf sword grass. Hey, that's Kai Lai. How did his aura become so unfathomable? The newcomer was the successor of the Jing Wei immortal system, Wei Qianqian. Interesting. What kind of opportunity did Kai Lai get? Even I can't see through it. But these ancient ruins will only be open for a few days. Kai Lai must be dreaming if he thinks he can learn the grass symbol sword art in these few days. In another part of the void, rays of light appeared. Many ancient characters were floating in it. A young master who looked like a refined scholar from the mortal world appeared. He was cultured and refined. Kang Li, you're here too. Wei Qianqian glanced at him. Many Sky Prides around were surprised. Wei Qianqian of the Jing Wei immortal system. Kang Li of the Kang Jie immortal system was also here. It seemed that they were also curious to know how far this successor of the Kaiyu immortal system, who was on the same level as them, had reached. Chapter 722. Above the mountain peak, thousands of sword chi sliced through the void. Ordinary saints would be sliced into pieces if they got close. However, none of this affected the black figure sitting cross-legged in front of the nine-leaf sword grass. He was like a black iron tower, or a demon sitting cross-legged. Thousands of sword chi could not get close to him. That person's figure gave off too much pressure, as if he was a demon sovereign boss. Kang Li of immortal Tsungjie frowned as he pondered. The successors of the 9 great immortal orthodoxies more or less knew each other. In his opinion, Kai Lai was a loner. Although he was strong, he was not strong enough to make Kang Li wary of him. It was a little unbelievable. It seems that Kai Lai has gotten a lot of opportunities during this time. Kang Li's eyes were solemn. The 9 great immortal orthodoxies were not united. Not to mention that the successors of the immortal orthodoxies had to compete for the position of Xianting's young emperor. They were all competitors. However, it was not like the Jun family's prodigies competing for the sequence. The successors of the immortal orthodoxies did not have any blood ties. Therefore, when they fought, it was far crueler than the competition between prodigies with family bloodlines. Therefore, Kang Li was not happy to see Kai Lai's cultivation increase. Kang Li, it seems that you have another strong competitor. On the other side, Wei Qianqian giggled cheerfully. Although she was the successor of the immortal elite guard, she had no intention of competing for the position of Xianting's young emperor. In fact, the immortal elite guard had always been on Empress Wa's side. In other words, Wei Qianqian was on Princess Lingyang's side. Haha, pressure is motivation. Kang Li smiled gently and elegantly. No way, no way, no way, no way, no one uses pressure as motivation, right? Also, why do I feel like you're under a lot of pressure? It's okay, you should be more relaxed, just like me. Wei Qianqian's words made Kang Li's eyes twitch slightly. Even though the successor of the elite immortal lineage was adorable, she was famous for being a chatterbox, chattering non-stop like a skylark. She was a chatterbox. And just as time was passing, Yi Zichen's eyes widened. Zhun Xiaoyaro was fully immersed in his comprehension. Although he was only a Dharmakaya, he had complete comprehension ability. It was as if he could see a stalk of 9-leaf sword grass growing tenaciously in the Your Wilds. As the sword leaves vibrated, countless sword chi burst forth, cutting down the great stars in outer space. In just a few days, Jiyu Tiezi and Fairy Yuan's wedding was about to begin. As expected, these few days are still too short. Many geniuses who were meditating shook their heads in disappointment. In such a short amount of time, let alone comprehending the complete grass symbol sword technique, it was impossible for him to even comprehend half a move. Even someone as monstrous as Jiyu Tiezi had only comprehended 30 to 40% of the grass symbol sword technique after a long period of study. It seems that Kai Lai has failed. Kang Li was not surprised to see this. Of course, they didn't mock him. After all, if it were him, it would be impossible for him to comprehend anything in these few days. Phew, that scared me. I really thought that Kai Lai was that heaven-defying. Wei Qianqian patted her small chest and exhaled. Kai Long, Kai Yu, and the others' faces dimmed slightly, but they weren't disappointed. This was a normal occurrence. He, someone is overestimating himself. The people from Fushi Immortal System began to mock and ridicule again. Just as Kai Yu and the others were about to reprimand them, suddenly, a series of exclamations sounded. Everyone looked over with a stunned expression. That was because the whistling sword chi on the mountain peak suddenly froze at the same time. It was as if they were frozen in the void. The gazes of the entire crowd gathered on the seated figure in an instant. Wei Qianqian and Kang Li were also slightly shocked. Zhun Xiaoyaro slowly got up. Under the helmet, there seemed to be thousands of sword lights flashing in his eyes. Then, Zhun Xiaoyaro used his finger as a sword and slashed at the sky. Boom! The void was in chaos. Thousands of sword lights gathered in one place. Vaguely, there seemed to be a green blade of grass appearing in the void. That stalk of grass had 9 leaves, and the leaves were covered with mysterious patterns. As the sword leaves trembled, the sword chi tore the sky and earth apart. The incomparably bright sword light seemed to have cut through time and space, and cut open the universe. Rumble. In the starry sky outside Filing Star, countless stars were shattered and fell. It formed a shocking meteor shower. A blade of grass had cut through the sun, moon, and stars. At this moment, the whole place was in an uproar. Everyone's eyes widened, and they all gasped in disbelief. Could this be the complete grass symbol sword technique? With this power, it should be. But how is this possible? Only a few days have passed. Could it be that Kai Lai had comprehended the grass symbol sword technique before? All the Sky Prides were extremely shocked, and their scalps were tingling. To comprehend a great superpower in a few days, what kind of monstrous talent and comprehension was this? One had to know that even Jiyu Tiezi, who could comprehend it at any time, had only comprehended 30 to 40% until now. Kang Li and Wei Qianqian were also a little confused and could not react for a moment. After a brief moment of shock, Kai Long, Kai Yu, and the rest were pleasantly surprised. The shock that Kai Lai brought to them was too great. Countless noises spread out in the surroundings, and many gazes were filled with surprise, confusion, jealousy, and fear. Zhun Xiaoyaro ignored them. Monstrous was not enough to describe his comprehension. Comprehending a great superpower in a few days was really nothing. Back then, He did not take long to comprehend the immortal slaying sword technique. As expected of a great ancient ferocious beast, its power is indeed extraordinary. No wonder it can stand shoulder to shoulder with the true dragon and Kuan Peng, and is also one of the 5 great divine techniques, Jun Xiaoyaro muttered to himself. That's right, the grass symbol sword technique was also one of the 5 great divine techniques. Jun Xiaoyaro had already cultivated the immortal slaying sword technique and the primitive emperor Dao sword of the 5 great divine techniques. Now, there was also the grass symbol sword technique. Out of the 5 great divine techniques, he had 3 of them. And these 5 great divine techniques were all related to the sword Dao. Now, even if Jun Xiaoyaro did not specialize in the sword Dao, his attainments in the sword Dao were far more profound and powerful than many of the sword cultivators who specialized in the sword Dao. This was Jun Xiaoyao's strength. He had no shortcomings in all aspects. As Jun Xiaoyaro fully comprehended the grass symbol sword technique, the grass symbol sword technique was completely comprehended. The withered 9-leaf sword grass also turned into ashes and scattered with the wind. In other words, Jiu Tiezi could no longer comprehend the complete grass symbol sword technique. That ancient ruin is gone. Many sky prides were stunned. This was undoubtedly a great loss to Fushi Immortal System and Jiu Tiezi. But Fushi Immortal System could not say anything about it. After all, they were the ones who wanted to open it. This made him feel very aggrieved and uncomfortable. Chapter 723. At this moment, the Fushi Immortal System's people's faces were as red as a pig's liver, as if they had eaten a fly. For a long time, they were the ones who looked down on Kaiyu Immortal System. Now, Kaiyu Immortal System's people were stepping on their heads, making them feel uncomfortable. What's wrong? Weren't you mocking us earlier? Why aren't you saying anything now? Kaiyu mocked. What are you in front of Big Brother Kai Lai? Kai Long's red lips curled into a cold smirk. She was in a good mood. It could be said that this group of Kaiyu Immortal System's sky prides felt extremely carefree, as if they had turned over a new leaf. The Fushi Immortal System's people left with their tails between their legs. Wait until Lord Jiu Tiezi comes out, you'll be in for it. Some of them were still cursing. Jun Xiaoyaro left the mountain peak. As far as he was concerned, merely the grass symbol sword technique made this trip worth it. Big Brother Kai Lai, Kai Long and the rest came forward, their eyes full of admiration. The reason why they could hold their heads high was because of this figure in front of them. Jun Xiaoyaro remained expressionless under his helmet as he looked at Kai Long, whose eyes were filled with emotions. If they knew that Kai Lai had died in his hands, how would they feel? Jun Xiaoyaro ignored them and prepared to go to the banquet. Kai Yu and the rest did not mind seeing Jun Xiaoyaro ignoring them. They were still immersed in joy. Kai Long's beautiful eyes dimmed slightly. Although Kai Lai had been aloof before, he would at least talk to her a little. But now, he did not even want to talk to her. Brother Kai Lai, why didn't I notice that you have such comprehension and strength? Kang Li smiled with his hands behind his back. There was a hint of scrutiny in his eyes. That's right, Kai Lai, what opportunity did you get? How did you improve so much? Wei Qianqian was like a curious child, asking non-stop. Jun Xiaoyaro ignored him as well, heading straight ahead in a flash. This. Wei Qianqian was stunned. This Kai Lai did not even give them face. Is he getting complacent? Wei Qianqian pouted and muttered as she rolled her eyes. Kang Li frowned slightly. 2 ancient characters vaguely appeared in his eyes. In his left eye, there was a miniature life character. In his right eye, there was a miniature luck character. Immortal Tsangjia's legacy originated from a mysterious ancient emperor. That ancient emperor entered the Tao through words and was known for his derivation. His name was Tsangjia. There were still rumors about Tsangjia creating characters in the 9 heavens immortal realm. This immortal heritage had the special ability to imbue their words with the power of their arts. At this moment, the word fate appeared in Kang Li's eyes. He wanted to deduce Kai Lai's life trajectory and find out what kind of fortune he had obtained. But in the next moment, Kang Li's body suddenly shook, and he couldn't help but groan in pain. He hurriedly covered his eyes with both hands. Traces of blood seeped out from between his fingers. Hey! What's wrong with you? Wei Qianqian asked in surprise. No, how is this possible? That Kai Lai, Kang Li's hands were covered in blood. His eyes were in great pain too. He almost went blind. He struggled to conceal his astonishment. Blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth. He had suffered a great backlash. It was only a rough estimation. Kang Li could not imagine how great the backlash would be if he used his full strength. His life might even be in danger. Kang Li, what's wrong with you? Wei Qianqian was utterly confused. This is too terrifying. What kind of incredible fortunate encounter did Kai Lai find? Kang Li's heart pounded heavily. He was unable to calm his thoughts. Jun Xiaoyao ignored the discussions outside. He continued to move forward. A mystical mountain was floating in the rift ahead. On top of the mountain were magnificent palaces, like heavenly palaces hanging high in the sky. At the center of the place was a spacious square, where a banquet was being held. All kinds of delicacies and immortal wines were being served by waitresses. It was the place where the wedding was being held. Most of the seats were taken. Among them were the successors of immortal factions, disciples of ancient clans, descendants of supreme tribes, saints of transcendental sacred grounds, etc. These people, who were rarely seen, were all gathered in one place. Only Fuxi Immortal Systems Gu Tiezi had such prestige. Kai Long, Kai Yu, and the others caught up and followed Jun Xiaoyao silently. Two beautiful female attendants at the front stepped forward. Their expressions were extremely respectful as they said, "Lord Kai Lai, this way please." Kai Long, Kai Yu, and the others were surprised by their attitude. In the past, Fuxi Immortal System would not treat them so courteously. Jun Xiaoyao nodded faintly. The waitresses led them to the most luxurious seats in front. Everyone around them was an immortal faction successor or a descendant of the ancient tribes. Wei Qianqian and Kang Li were also here. Wei Qianqian glanced at Jun Xiaoyao and snorted, "Isn't it just comprehending the grass symbol sword technique? What's there to be proud of?" I don't think I can comprehend it." Kang Li's face was filled with fear. He did not even dare to probe Jun Xiaoyao's aura. In the distance, another green-robed man arrived. His arrival had also attracted the attention of everyone. "Shenong Immortal Systems people are here too," Wei Qianqian said. "Wei Qianqian, Kang Li, Kai Lai. It seems like only the four of us are here for this wedding." The green-robed man smiled faintly. His name was Yarou Qing, a successor of Shenong Immortal System. This immortal system was proficient in alchemy and refining pills. Yarou Qing was one of the best among the younger generation and was known as the Nether Doctor. Not only could he refine pills, but he could also refine poisons. "I wonder if Sister Ling Yang will be here," Wei Qianqian mumbled. Ling Yang. Yarou Qing's eyes flashed with surprise when he heard the name. This was a woman that he could not forget. After regaining his senses, Yarou Qing turned to Kai Lai and smiled faintly. "I didn't expect that you would be the one who hid the deepest among us." Jun Xiaoyao did not intend to respond to Yarou Qing's words. He only wanted to wait for the wedding banquet to begin. He wanted to see what kind of person the ancient prince, one of the 7 defiant kings, was. Yarou Qing's expression stiffened when Jun Xiaoyao did not respond. He then returned to his seat. Suddenly, a voice announced, "Empress Wa's immortal system is here." Everyone's attention was drawn to the source of the voice. However, to their disappointment, the person who came was not Ling Yuan, but her maid, Yu Ying. Sakura's oval face was as fair as jade, and her black hair was tied into 2 buns. She said gracefully, "Her Highness is occupied and cannot come. She has sent Sakura to congratulate you." Hearing this, Kang Li and Yarou Qing's eyes flashed with a trace of understanding. It seemed that Ling Yang did not give Gu Tiezi face. She did not even come to the wedding. Gu Tiezi would not be in a good mood if he knew. Sakura went to the VIP seats. Although she was only a maid, she was Ling Yang's maid. Naturally, she was qualified to sit. "Sakura, I heard that you met the legendary son of God of the Jun family at the 70th level of the ancient road. What does he look like?" What is his personality? How powerful is he? Wei Qianqian was a chatterbox. In addition, she was very curious about Jun Xiaoyao. She asked a lot of questions. Sakura fell silent after hearing this. She seemed to be thinking about how to phrase it. Kang Li, Yarou Qing, and the others were waiting. They also wanted to know what kind of peerless figure this invincible person was. Even the ancient prince and the other paragons had to join forces to deal with him. What kind of peerless figure was he? Jun Xiaoyao's Dharma body, who was disguised as Kai Lai, calmly picked up a cup of tea and sipped it. After pondering for a moment, Sakura sighed. Her eyes could not help but flicker with a strange light. Who else but you can surpass the world? Master Mo's hang is unparalleled. For a better reading experience, please visit the mobile version of the website, Book 5975. Chapter 724. She didn't say too much, nor did she say too many words of praise. Just a few words were enough to express Sakura's emotions and shock. To be honest, this was Sakura's most sincere feeling. Before she met Jun Xiaoyao, she really didn't know that there was such an amazing man in the world. This was purely from a woman's point of view. Even if she was from the Xian Ting, she couldn't help but sigh. Hearing this, Kang Li and Yarou Qing's expressions changed slightly. In fact, no man liked another woman praising another man in front of them. Not to mention that this man was from the opposite camp. The Xian Ting and the Jun family didn't have any conflicts for the time being. However, everyone in the world knew that these two colossi would eventually clash for the sake of the dear celestial realm. Are you Ying? Those words are a bit heavy, Kang Li said with a smile. That's right. Not everyone can use the word unparalleled, Yarou Qing said casually as she sipped her tea. Sakura smiled inwardly. Who said that only women would be jealous? Men would be jealous of men who were better than them. Sakura is not lying. Sakura pursed her lips and smiled. Is he really that amazing? Wei Qianqian's curiosity was completely piqued. Her heart was itching as if a cat was scratching it. She really wanted to see for herself what kind of person the Jun family's son of God was. Ruiying, are you a member of our immortal court or a member of the Jun family? Yarou Qing teased. This is just Sakura's true feelings, Sakura said. Hey, don't tell me you fell in love with the Jun family's son of God at first sight? Wei Qianqian giggled. Of course not. Sakura hurriedly retorted, but her cheeks were red. But Sakura thinks that the Jun family's son of God and Her Highness are a good match. Sakura changed the topic. The moment these words came out, Kang Li, Yarou Qing, and the others' faces turned serious. Some of the surrounding sky prides were stunned when they heard this. Who was Ling Yang? The Empress of the Empress Wa immortal lineage possessed the most honorable bloodline. She was like a brilliant pearl in the entire Nine Heavens immortal realm. Not to mention, she was qualified to compete for the position of Xian Ting's young emperor. In the future, there might be a female Xian Ting, or even a female ruler of Xian Ting. As for Jun Xiaoyao, he was destined to be the pillar of the Jun family of the ancients. Although these two people's statuses were compatible, they were definitely not close to each other. It was absolutely impossible for there to be such a relationship. The only relationship between them was that of enemies. After a short moment of silence, Yarou Qing suddenly laughed. Sakura, your joke is a bit funny. That's right, this is a little unrealistic. Kang Li also shook his head. Yu Ying also felt that her words were a little ridiculous. However, she simply thought Jun Xiaoyao was a good match for Ling Yang. If it were Kang Li or Yarou Qing, even though they were outstanding successors of immortal lineages, however, compared to Jun Xiaoyao, their appearance, temperament, strength, talent, and temperament were still a distance away. That being said, she would not say it out loud, just in case the men were jealous of her again. I'm so curious, if only that Jun Xiaoyao could show up in front of me. Sigh, Kai Lai, why aren't you saying anything? That Jun Xiaoyao is the common enemy of the Xian Ting too, right? Wei Qianqian exclaimed. She glanced at Jun Xiaoyao with a sideways glance. Jun Xiaoyao remained silent, as if he did not see anything. Say something. Was he going to beat himself up? Sakura shifted her gaze to Jun Xiaoyao too. For some reason, she had an indescribable feeling when she looked at the silent, pitch-black figure. Just as Sakura was about to open her mouth and ask something, the heavenly palace in front of her suddenly opened. Boundless divine light spilled out, surging with immortal light and surging mist. 18 beautiful maids, like stars surrounding the moon, surrounded a beautiful girl in a red wedding dress. The girl's smooth black hair was tied into a wedding bun. Her exquisite and beautiful facial features were expressionless. Her eyebrows were like emerald feathers, her eyes were like limpid autumn waters, and her skin was as white as snow. She was like a fairy, beautiful and eye-catching. It could be said that this girl was enough to take the breath of any man. She's heavenly maiden Yuan. No wonder Gu Tiezi likes her. Yeah, at first, I thought that with heavenly maiden Yuan's status, it was a bit of a stretch to match Gu Tiezi. Now it seems that even heroes have a weakness for beauties. But why do I feel that heavenly maiden Yuan doesn't seem too happy? Some people also saw the clues. Logically speaking, being able to marry Gu Tiezi should be the dream of many women. However, they could not see a trace of joy on heavenly maiden Yuan's pretty face. It was as if she was an exquisite doll, as if she had no soul at all. Sure, don't say that. I heard that heavenly maiden Yuan seems to have a little interaction with the Jun family's son of God. Some geniuses lowered their voices and said, I didn't know that. No wonder. After returning from Mount Tai, one would not look at other mountains. After seeing Mount Tai, other mountains were no longer pleasing to the eye. Even someone as outstanding as Gu Tiezi was probably inferior. On the other side, there was also a vast surge of light. Everyone was shocked to find that in the void, there was a pattern of the 8 trigrams. The power of 8 elements circled and circulated in the void. It was incomparably mysterious. It made people feel as if they were about to sink into it at first glance. At the same time, behind the 8 trigrams, one could vaguely see a figure with an incomparably ancient aura. It stood there like a god, filled with unparalleled pressure. That's Fuchs's holy physique phenomenon, Fuchs's 8 trigrams. Some geniuses were shocked. This special physique phenomenon was too terrifying. It was so oppressive that it made it difficult for people to breathe. In the endless light, a transcendent figure came with his hands behind his back. He was wearing an 8 trigrams robe. He had handsome features, a handsome figure, and a jade-like appearance. He was like a dragon steed and a phoenix chick, looking like a king. It was Gu Tiezi of Fuxi immortal lineage. Gu Tiezi stood there proudly as if he was the center of the world. Everything else was just a foil. Thank you for coming to my wedding banquet. Gu Tiezi cupped his hands slightly. His voice was faint, but it spread throughout the entire filing star. You're welcome. It's our honor to be able to attend the emperor's wedding banquet. A group of geniuses stood up and returned the salute. Gu Tiezi's identity was not something that anyone could compare to. Even Kang Li, Yarou Qing, and the other descendants of immortal lineage also cupped their hands to show their courtesy. On the other hand, Jun Xiaoyao did not react at all. He did not even stand up. Gu Tiezi swept his gaze and also noticed Jun Xiaoyao. Kai Lai, he's actually here. But his aura. Gu Tiezi's eyes revealed a hint of doubt. He did not expect Kai Lai to come. Previously, he had some conflicts with Kai Lai, although he had the upper hand in the end. However, after taking a glance, Gu Tiezi withdrew his gaze. To him, Kai Lai alone was not enough to stir up any waves. For a better reading experience, please visit the mobile version website, Book 5975. Chapter 725. His Gu Tiezi. Jun Xiaoyao sized up Gu Tiezi from beneath his mask. To be chosen as one of the 7 defiant sovereigns by the immortal region's will, Gu Tiezi was indeed extraordinary. He possessed the Fuxi Saint constitution, and his aura was unfathomable. Around him, runes of the 8 trigrams flickered, indicating that Gu Tiezi could easily control these 8 supreme powers. Gu Tiezi was indeed one of the few prodigies Jun Xiaoyao had encountered on the ancient road of ultimate that he'd taken a second look at. But that was all there was to it. Jun Xiaoyao's avatar, which only had a tenth of his power, was calm in the face of Gu Tiezi, let alone his true body. With Gu Tiezi and Fairy Yuan's arrival, the atmosphere of the wedding reached a climax. However, many people with keen eyes noticed that Fairy Yuan's expression didn't seem quite right. There wasn't even a hint of a smile on her delicate face. Gu Tiezi, wait, Fairy Yuan suddenly spoke, her voice like pearls falling on a jade plate. What is it? Gu Tiezi's expression was impassive. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't get Ling Yang, he wouldn't have chosen such a substitute. However, this was also the decision of Immortal Fuxi and Immortal Empress Wa's. After this marriage, the two immortal heritages would join forces to rebuild the Xian Ting. I want to dance again, Fairy Maiden Yuan said in a faint voice. The ancient prince frowned slightly. He could not understand what was going on in this young girl's head. But in the end, he agreed. Fairy Yuan began to dance again in the air. All sorts of runes of the great Tao shone brightly, and a rain of flowers fell, setting off Fairy Yuan's appearance. Looking from afar, she was as bright as the sun rising in the morning. Looking closer, she was like a lotus emitting green waves. Goddess Luo's graceful dance, a dance of the world. Everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. Both men and women were immersed in this beautiful dance. Some of the more meticulous female cultivators could vaguely feel the sorrow hidden in this dance. She was like a young girl who was alone in her boudoir and couldn't wait for her lover to come. She was miserable and seemed to be weeping and complaining. However, on this joyous day of the wedding, the Fairy Yuan Wu's mood was thought-provoking. Looking at the crowd of people who had come to attend the wedding, he was the only one who wasn't there. Fairy Yuan's tender red lips revealed a self-mocking smile. True enough. To him, was she just a passerby who didn't have much to do with him? But even so, Fairy Yuan didn't have the slightest bit of regret. To her, the time she spent with Jun Xiaoyaro was the most relaxing and enjoyable time she had had since she became conscious. I'm only willing to work for you. Fairy Yuan murmured and closed her beautiful eyes. A sparkling and translucent tear slid down from the corner of her eye. It was extremely resplendent, like a diamond. The expressions of all the prodigies present changed imperceptibly when they heard this. I'm only willing to work for you. Was this you referring to Gu Tiezi or that person? Below the stage, Jun Xiaoyaro looked at the scene in front of him indifferently. He looked at the beautiful girl dancing in the sky like a fairy. The last time they parted, this girl was also like this, dancing under the starry sky. That dance was only for him. Jun Xiaoyaro fell silent. His eyes, which were as deep as the starry sky, flickered with a faint light. In the void, the dance ended. Many people were still immersed in it. It was as if the music lingered for 3 days. Gu Tiezi's expression was indifferent. He didn't have the leisure to admire Fairy Yuan's dance. Although it was indeed beautiful. All right, Fairy Yuan, let's continue the wedding, Gu Tiezi said and reached out to embrace Fairy Yuan's waist. Although Ling Yang had already decided to betroth Fairy Yuan to Gu Tiezi. But until now, he hadn't even touched Fairy Yuan's finger. As for her relationship with Jun Xiaoyaro, after the wedding, she would naturally submit after some arrangements. Fairy Yuan's delicate face was pale, like a withered flower. And at this moment, the world seemed to be silent. A soft sigh fell like a feather. But it just so happened that it resounded in everyone's ears. Everyone's eyes turned to the source of the sound almost at the same time. They saw a figure that was clad in full armor and was as silent as an iron tower. Kai Lai. In all directions, countless people were surprised, and puzzled. What was this successor of Kaiyu Immortal's lineage doing at this time? Wei Qianqian, Kang Li, Yaro Qing, Sakura, and the others also turned their gazes over. Kai Lai, what do you mean by this? In the sky, Gu Tiezi's expression didn't change at all. He had long expected that Kai Lai would come to his wedding banquet. It was probably a weasel paying a New Year's visit to the chicken. After all, the relationship between Fuxi Immortal's lineage and Kaiyu Immortal's lineage was definitely not good. This Kai Lai had also had several conflicts with him before. Of course, he suppressed it every time. But this time, he vaguely felt that there was something wrong with Kai Lai. Under everyone's gaze, that figure slowly raised his hand. In his hand was a jade pendant. The moment she saw this jade pendant, Fairy Yuan felt as if she was struck by lightning. Her mind instantly went blank. Her delicate body trembled in disbelief. Her long eyelashes that were like butterfly wings also trembled slightly with her fluctuating emotions. She couldn't be more familiar with this jade pendant. A cracking sound was heard. That figure crushed the jade pendant. Everyone's eyes were puzzled, some did not understand what was going on. Only Fairy Yuan covered her red lips with her jade-like hands. Sparkling and translucent tears flowed down her face, ruining her elegant makeup. The others didn't know what this action meant. But she knew. Because when she left that figure, she had handed over this jade pendant. And she said that as long as he thought of her, he should crush this jade pendant. She would disregard everything and come back to find him. And now, he was here. Boom. In the next moment, an incomparably terrifying fluctuation erupted. That pitch-black armor exploded inch by inch. Broken skin shot in all directions. Dazzling light accompanied by immortal radiance overflowed. A slender, immortal-like figure appeared in front of everyone's eyes in shock, dressed in white, graceful and handsome, like a celestial being, like a true immortal descending into the world. A terrifying pressure swept out, causing all sides to bow down and tremble. This son of God forbids this wedding. The faint words fell, but it was like a heavenly judgment. Everyone still hadn't recovered from their shock, and they all fell into a state of incomparable shock and stupefaction. Young Master Jun. Tears streamed down Fairy Yuan's face. She moved her lotus feet and swept towards Jun Xiaoyao. At this moment, she didn't want to care about anything. As long as he came, it was fine. Fairy Yuan flew into Jun Xiaoyao's arms like a swallow returning to its nest. In an instant, he was filled with fragrance. Looking at the sobbing girl in his arms, Jun Xiaoyao's eyes revealed a hint of complexity. He did not hug Fairy Yuan. He only patted her shoulder and said softly, "I'll take you away." There were no sweet words, no seas running dry and rocks crumbling. It was just a simple sentence. "I'll take you away." For a better reading experience, please visit the mobile version of the website, Book 5975. Chapter 726. The entire Flying Spirit Star and Fushi Immortal Systems training ground were so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Only the sobbing of a young girl could be heard. Those were tears of joy. Wei Chanxian, Kang Li, Yaro Qing, and the others couldn't react in time. Even Jiu Tie's brain short-circuited for a moment. That was because a person who absolutely shouldn't have appeared in this place had appeared here. After a brief moment of silence, the rest of the prodigies who had come to attend the wedding burst into an uproar. Am I seeing things? That's the son of God of the Jun clan? Oh heavens, the son of God of the Jun clan actually came to Fushi Immortal Systems training ground, and at Jiu Tie's wedding? Is he here for Fairy Yuan? Is he going to steal the bride today? Countless people were shocked, their minds blank. They didn't expect to see such a dramatic scene. Especially when they saw Fairy Yuan curled up in Jun Xiaoyao's arms. Many were shocked. Remember, today was the wedding day of Jiu Tiezi and Fairy Yuan. As one of the main characters, the bride was in the arms of another man. This was a bit exciting. And there was one more thing. If Jun Xiaoyao could disguise himself as Kai Lai, did that mean that Kai Lai was dead? The prodigies of Kaiyu Immortal System couldn't accept this scene, their minds blank. Especially Kai Long, when she saw the white-robed figure floating in the air, she felt dizzy and couldn't even stand properly. Under such circumstances, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Kai Lai's fate was likely to be grim. How can this be? I thought our Kaiyu Immortal System would be able to hold our heads high, but this is the result. Kaiyu was dumbfounded, as if he had lost his soul. The Kai Lai they were so proud of and worshipped was actually Jun Xiaoyao. This feeling of having their dreams shattered was like falling from heaven all the way to hell. His Jun Xiaoyao? Wei Chanxian's rosy little mouth widened in surprise. She had previously said that she wanted to see what kind of person the son of God of the Jun family was. She didn't expect him to appear in front of her now. No wonder my previous deduction suffered a backlash. I thought Kai Lai had obtained some great opportunity. So that's how it is. Kang Li came to a sudden realization. Wasn't deducing Zheng Xiaoyao's fate tantamount to courting death? Not to mention him, even a prime or a quasi-emperor would suffer a great backlash if they tried to deduce the trajectory of Zheng Xiaoyao's fate. This kind of person must have a big shot of the Zheng family behind him, who was covering up his fate and protecting him. Moreover, he understood that with Zheng Xiaoyao's ability, it wasn't impossible for him to comprehend the grass symbol sword technique in a few days. I knew it. How could Kai Lai have such an ability? No wonder. Kang Li sighed. At this moment, Zheng Xiaoyao stepped into the sky, his robes fluttering in the wind. His peerless grace made him look like a true immortal who had descended to the mortal world. If Gu Tieze's appearance earlier was said to have stolen the attention of everyone present, now, Zheng Xiaoyao seemed to be the center of heaven and earth, with all the halos added to his body. His charisma even overshadowed the brilliance of the ancient prince, who was on home ground. So handsome. Wei Qianqian's beautiful eyes turned starry as she exclaimed. She had been doubtful that Sakura's evaluation of Zheng Xiaoyao was too high. Now, it seemed that it wasn't excessive at all. Zheng Xiaoyao, you've got guts. How dare you come to my Fushi training hall to cause trouble? Gu Tieze's tone was incomparably cold. His bride had thrown herself into the arms of his enemy at his wedding banquet. No man would be able to accept this. Not to mention that this man was Zheng Xiaoyao. Where would Gu Tieze put his face? The world is so big. Where can't I go? Zheng Xiaoyao's expression was calm. It seems that you really think that I can't do anything to you just because you're the son of God of the Zheng family. Others might be afraid, but I won't. Gu Tieze's eyes were cold as he looked at Fairy Yuan with a cold murderous intent. Previously, he knew that Fairy Yuan and Zheng Xiaoyao had some connections. However, he didn't expect that Fairy Yuan's heart had already been captured. It was one thing to be rejected by Ling Yang, but now he couldn't even get Fairy Yuan. Gu Tieze's eyes were filled with cold determination. If he couldn't get it, he would rather destroy it. If it were any other man, they would have been brainlessly furious in the face of such a situation. However, Gu Tieze was Gu Tieze after all. His temperament was far from what ordinary people could compare to. He calmed his emotions and said indifferently, "Since you're wearing Kai Lai's armor, then he must be. He's dead," Zheng Xiaoyao said plainly. The fall of a descendant of an immortal orthodoxy came out of his mouth as if it didn't have any weight at all. What? Kai Lai is really dead? These words set off a violent uproar in the surroundings. The one who died wasn't some random cat or dog, but a descendant of an immortal orthodoxy. When Kai Long heard this, she couldn't even stand still. Her delicate body swayed. Kai Yu and the others also had ashen faces. However, thinking of how Zheng Xiaoyao had made them proud, Kai Yu actually thought that it would be great if Kai Lai could be as powerful as Zheng Xiaoyao. Then their Kai Yu immortal orthodoxy wouldn't have to suffer. Kai Lai is really dead. He's not weak. Kang Li frowned tightly. Kai Lai was not the strongest among the descendants of an immortal orthodoxy, but he was not weak either. If Zheng Xiaoyao could kill Kai Lai, didn't that mean that he could also pose a fatal threat to them? However, what made Kang Li feel a little strange was that although Zheng Xiaoyao's aura was strong, it didn't have the kind of power that could crush everything. You killed the descendant of my Xian Ting immortal orthodoxy and still dare to show yourself here. Zheng Xiaoyao, where is your confidence coming from? Gu Tieze slowly raised his hand. There was a terrifying energy brewing in it. Obviously, he wasn't going to let Zheng Xiaoyao leave today. Young Master Zheng, quickly leave. Fairy Maiden Yuan, who was in Zheng Xiaoyao's arms, also raised her snow-white face with a hint of anxiety. She was more than satisfied that Zheng Xiaoyao was able to show up at her place. If anything happened to Zheng Xiaoyao because of her, she would never forgive herself. It doesn't matter. They're just a bunch of nobodies. Zheng Xiaoyao didn't care. You'll stay here today. Gu Tieze stretched out his hand. Vast spiritual power surged and Tao laws intertwined, forming a giant hand that covered the sky and came crashing down. If he didn't make Jun Xiaoyaro stay today, he would lose all face. Jun Xiaoyaro flung his sleeve. Divine power surged and his vitality soared to the sky, directly breaking the giant hand that covered the sky. Gu Tiezi snorted coldly. The divine power in his hand changed, and a crimson rune suddenly appeared in the void. Li hexagram, heavenly fire prairie. In the void, a monstrous sea of fire surged toward Jun Xiaoyaro. Gu Tiezi, who had the Fushi Holy Constitution, could control the power of the 8 trigrams and use 8 different abilities. His power was limitless. The sky prides around the square hurriedly retreated, afraid of being caught in the crossfire. Jun Xiaoyaro raised his hand and a devouring vortex appeared in the void. It was the devouring god demonic art. The blazing flames that filled the sky were directly swallowed by it. Today, this son of God won't keep you company. Jun Xiaoyaro chuckled. After all, he was in Fushi Immortal System's territory. If he delayed any longer, it would be troublesome when the powerhouses of Fushi Immortal System arrived. Jun Xiaoyaro was there to rescue Fairy Yuan and check out the powers of the descendants of the celestial lineages while he was at it. Now that he had achieved his goal, he naturally wouldn't linger. At this time, Kang Li stepped out and smiled. "Young Master Jun, why are you in such a hurry? Our Xian Ting hasn't properly entertained you yet." "Yeah, you're a guest. Why are you in such a hurry to leave?" Yarrow Qing also smiled. This time, all the cultivators who attended the banquet widened their eyes. Could it be that the successors of the celestial lineages are joining forces to keep Jun Xiaoyaro here? Chapter 727. The successors of immortal orthodoxies were not just any Tom, Dick, or Harry. Every one of them was famous on the ancient road and was known as the supreme outlawed sky prides. Now, these successors of immortal orthodoxies were joining forces to take on Jun Xiaoyaro. It was absolutely shocking. Gu Tiezi frowned slightly when he saw this. He wanted to take on Jun Xiaoyaro alone. However, if they worked together, they would be able to take down Jun Xiaoyaro in the shortest time possible. Gu Tiezi's goal was to kill Jun Xiaoyaro. As one of the 7 defiant sovereigns, if he killed Jun Xiaoyaro, he would be rewarded with the heavenly crown. That was a reward that was destined to prove one's Dao and become an emperor. No one would refuse it. Formation. Kang Li uttered a word. What was even more shocking was that this word actually turned into a substantial formation word. The word melted into the void. Suddenly, formation runes appeared in the void around Jun Xiaoyaro, blocking off Jun Xiaoyao's escape route. Yarrow Qing waved his hand and a dark green poisonous mist spread out. Wherever it passed, even the void was corroded and sizzled. Yarrow Qing was known as the Underworld Doctor. Not only was his alchemy skills amazing, but he was also a master of poison. "Hihi, brother Xiaoyao, why are you leaving so quickly? I still want to chat with you." Wei Qianqian also moved gracefully and appeared in a flash. Her jade-white hands formed a seal like a butterfly fluttering through flowers. The shadow of a spiritual bird appeared behind her, emitting a divine radiance. On the other side, Gu Tiezi made his move again. Zhen hexagram, violent thunder strike. Gu Tiezi raised his hand and a thunder Zhen hexagram rune appeared in the void. Suddenly, thunder rumbled and endless thunder energy gathered to form a lightning ball with the power to destroy the world. Gu Tiezi seemed to have transformed from the god of fire into the god of thunder. The transformation was frightening. As expected of the Fushi saintly physique. He can control the power of the 8 trigrams and control the creation of heaven and earth. Many geniuses were amazed. At this moment, Gu Tiezi, Kang Li, Yarrow Qing, and Wei Qianqian, 4 successors of immortal orthodoxies, attacked at the same time. In other words, not a single genius on the entire ancient road had received such treatment. Jun Xiaoyaro was the first. Jun Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, remained nonchalant in front of these 4 immortal orthodoxies. He lowered his head and looked at Fairy Maiden Yuan, who was still lying in his arms. He smiled faintly. "Are you afraid? As long as I can be with young Master Jun, I'm not afraid of anything." A smile appeared on Fairy Yuan's exquisite face. She was like a completely different person compared to her previous sorrowful self. For a woman, All she needed was a reassuring embrace. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled faintly. He raised his hand and used his fingers as a sword. Behind him, endless sword light suddenly shot into the sky. A small blade of grass appeared out of thin air. 9 sword leaves shone brightly and were covered in mysterious patterns. Many of the geniuses around them felt suffocated. It was the grass symbol sword technique. Gu Tiez's face darkened when he saw this scene. He had studied the grass symbol sword technique for a long time, but he still could not fully comprehend it. Jun Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, had completely comprehended it in just a few days. The gap between them could not be considered small. However, this also made Gu Tiezi even more determined to kill Jun Xiaoyaro. If Jun Xiaoyaro did not die, he would definitely lead the Jun family in the future and pose a huge threat to Xianting's position. If I can kill Jun Xiaoyaro and obtain the heavenly crown, then the position of Xianting's young emperor will no longer be a problem. Gu Tiez's eyes were full of ambition. Although the wedding was ruined, everything would be worth it as long as he could kill Jun Xiaoyaro. He might even be able to use this opportunity to win Ling Yang's heart. That was his true goal. Rumble. The 4 inheritors of immortal orthodoxies attacked, and the entire filing star seemed to be trembling. On the other side, Jun Xiaoyaro performed the grass symbol sword technique, and the shadow of the 9-leaf sword grass swayed in the void. As the sword leaves trembled, monstrous sword chi filled the air. Every wisp of sword chi seemed to be able to cut through time and space. An extreme collision occurred, and the surrounding void trembled like paper before it was torn apart by the magical power fluctuations. All kinds of divine chains were shattered, and magical power radiance surged. Is this a battle between outlawed sky prides? Many of the geniuses around them were extremely shocked when they saw this scene. Even outlawed sky prides would be instantly annihilated if they were to intervene in a battle of this level. Where's Jun Xiaoyaro? How is he? Many of them were curious and looked around. When the dust settled, Jun Xiaoyao's white robe was spotless. He held Fairy Yuan's slender waist with one hand, and his expression was as calm as still water. He's completely fine. Everyone was shocked when they saw this scene. The 4 inheritors of immortal orthodoxies attacked together, and yet they could not cause any substantial damage to Jun Xiaoyaro. Gu Tiezi frowned. He noticed something strange. He was not the only one. Wei Chanxian, Kang Li, Yaro Qing, and the others also noticed that something was wrong. They noticed that Jun Xiaoyao's body seemed to be slightly illusory, and they could vaguely feel some magical power emanating from him. Hey, what's going on? The others also noticed this abnormality. Could it be, as if he had thought of something, Gu Tiez's expression instantly turned extremely cold. Initially, he was still restraining his emotions. However, there was a hint of anger in his eyes now. Jun Xiaoyao, this is only one of your avatars. Gu Tiez's cold voice echoed throughout the sky and earth. Everyone was dumbfounded when they heard this. Their scalps went numb, and goosebumps appeared all over their bodies. What? This is only one of the Jun family's son of God's avatars? How is this possible? The Jun family's son of God's avatars could easily comprehend the grass symbol sword technique in just a few days. Now, he can even fight against 4 inheritors of immortal orthodoxies. Shock. Astonishment. Many people's minds were a little numb. They could not imagine this at all. Avatars weren't rare at all. However, avatars were usually of little value and could not compare to the main body. However, Gu Tiezi suddenly said that the Jun Xiaoyaro in front of them was only one of his avatars. This was a little frightening. If Jun Xiaoyao's avatars were this powerful, how powerful would his main body be? In other words, many of the outlawed sky prides present could not even compare to Jun Xiaoyao's avatars. This was too much of a shock. It overturned their thinking and imagination. What? It's really just an avatar? Wei Chanxian was shocked. Kang Li and Yaro Qing were also in disbelief. If it were not for their strong mental fortitude, their Daoist hearts would have been shaken. Seeing that he was exposed, Jun Xiaoyaro chuckled. Fairy Yuan, who was in his arms, was also very surprised. However, even if it was only an avatar, she was more than satisfied. At least she had left a mark in Jun Xiaoyao's heart. Jun Xiaoyao, are you looking down on me? Gu Tie's expression was unprecedentedly cold. If it was only an avatar, they would not be rewarded with the heavenly crown even if they killed him. More importantly, the four of them could not do anything to Jun Xiaoyao's avatar. If this were to spread, they would lose face. Of course, Gu Tiezi and the others were only attacking casually. They did not use any powerful techniques. Look down on you. Haha, I'm sorry. In the eyes of the Son of God, I'm already showing you enough respect by sending an avatar. Gu Tiezi, the next time we meet, I, the Son of God, will teach you the meaning of seniority. Since Fairy Yuan was here, Jun Xiaoyao did not want to waste any more time. As soon as he finished speaking, he used his finger as a sword and tore the void apart. He used the power of space and stepped on the Kuan Peng as his figure disappeared into the distance. Where do you think you're going? Gu Tiezi was not going to give up. He used the Zun hexagram to boost his wind power and quickly chased after him. It was not until the two of them were far away that the entire filing star was in an earth-shattering uproar. It was not hard to imagine that today's incident would sweep across the ancient road at an extremely fast speed. The story of Jun Xiaoyao fighting against 4 immortal orthodoxes with an avatar would also spread in a short time. Chapter 728. The entire filing star was in an uproar. Most of the people present were young. Almost no one from the Fuxi immortal lineage was present. They did not expect Jun Xiaoyao to be so bold. Not only did he kill Kai Lai, he even impersonated him and barged into the place. Most importantly, he had comprehended the grass symbol sword technique and had even kidnapped the bride. It was a great blow to the reputation of the Fuxi immortal lineage and Gu Tiezi. Oh my, I didn't expect to witness such a spectacular scene at the wedding. Yeah, the Son of God of the Jun clan broke into the Fuxi immortal lineage's dojo on his own. He fought the successors of 4 immortal lineages with his clone, and even kidnapped the bride. Even a storyteller wouldn't dare to do something like that, right? Many people exclaimed. The Xianting was once a formidable existence in the 9 heavens immortal realm. Its authority was inviolable. The Fuxi immortal lineage might only be one of the 9 immortal lineages of the Xianting, but it was still a formidable existence. Jun Xiaoyao's actions were like a slap to the face. Not to mention the fact that it was only a clone. It further amplified the impact of the slap. What a surprise, Kang Li let out a sigh. Even though he had heard about Jun Xiaoyao, he was not too bothered by it. He only treated him as a threat. However, he realized he was completely wrong when he faced Jun Xiaoyao in person. What he was facing was not a threat at all. It was a super boss. The kind that could bring endless pressure and despair to people. Kang Li finally understood why Jun Xiaoyao was competing with the Heavenly Dao. The Heavenly Dao needed the 7 geniuses to compete with him. It was completely useless to fight him alone. Just a mere avatar is already so powerful. Just how powerful is his original body? Yarou Qing's expression was unprecedentedly solemn. A clone was able to learn the cursive sword art in just a few days. It was even strong enough to fight the 4 of them. Part of the reason was because they had yet to use their full strength. But then again, it was also a testament to just how powerful Jun Xiaoyao truly was. You're so handsome. Wei Qianqian, on the other hand, was the most simple-minded and love-struck. Whose side are you on? Kang Li and Yarou Qing were speechless. Was Jun Xiaoyao really that charming? They casually swept their gazes around and were shocked to discover something. Almost all of the women present had a strange look in their eyes, as if they were reminiscing about the peerless beauty of the white-robed immortal. The 2 of them looked at each other and smiled bitterly. It was fine if he couldn't compete with him in terms of ability. Damn, he's so good-looking too. Sakura, I finally understand why you said that Jun Xiaoyao and sister Ling Yang are a good match. Now, it seems that you were right, Wei Qianqian said to Sakura. He's someone that the Empress is paying close attention to, Sakura stated. After all, Ling Yang was one of the 7 rebellious sovereigns. He wondered what would happen if he were to clash with Jun Xiaoyao. Kang Li and Yarou Qing's expressions changed slightly when they heard Sakura's words. But when they thought of Ling Yang's identity and position, as the empress of the Xian Ting, she and Zhun Xiaoyao had only one relationship. They were mortal enemies and rivals. After all, two tigers couldn't live on the same mountain. If the Xian Ting wanted to rise again, they would definitely clash with the Zhun family. Thinking of this, they felt a little more at ease. After all, they should keep the goodies within the family. Ling Yang should marry one of the male successors of the 9 immortal orthodoxies. About half an hour later, the void was torn apart. Jiyu Tiezi clasped his hands behind his back, his expression dark. Seeing Jiyu Tiezi return alone, everyone knew that Zhun Xiaoyao and Ling Yang should have left safely. This time, Zhun Xiaoyao not only comprehended the grass symbol sword technique, but he also took the bride away. He even used his Dharma body to publicly slap him in the face. It could be said that Jiyu Tiezi's face was swollen from the slap. "Sir, this wedding banquet." At the side, a servant came forward with an awkward expression and hesitated to speak. A large group of people came to attend the wedding banquet, but in the end, this was the outcome. It was embarrassing just thinking about it. "Disperse." Jiyu Tiezi waved his sleeves, his expression dark. Seeing this, the surrounding prodigies also knew that Jiyu Tiezi was probably not in a good mood right now, so they all cupped their fists and left. However, one could imagine that this news would immediately cause a storm and spread out. "Sister Kai Long, what about us?" Kai Yu asked. Kai Yu's yarn unified the prodigies, and they were all discouraged. Their mood fell from the clouds to the bottom of the valley. "Let's go back," Kai Long said weakly. "Shouldn't we take revenge for brother Kai Lai?" Someone said through gritted teeth. "Revenge?" Kai Long's face was filled with sorrow. Compared to Zhun Xiaoyao, they were not even ants. After a long while, one of the prodigies sighed. "Sometimes, I really wish that Zhun Xiaoyao was from Kai Yu immortal system." Kai Long's heart trembled slightly. She couldn't help but ask herself why she was so moved. Was it because of Kai Lai himself, or was it because of the sense of security that came from protecting her? "Brother Jiyu Tiezi, we'll also take our leave." Yarrow Ching cupped his fists. "Actually, don't mind it too much. If we were serious from the start, Zhun Xiaoyao's Dharma body wouldn't have been able to escape," Kang Li said. They were too careless from the start and didn't take it seriously. Wei Chanxian also pretended to comfort him. "That's right, Jiyu Tiezi, what's that saying again? A man's heart should be as broad as a green grassland. It's fine if a woman runs away with someone else." The corner of Jiyu Tiezi's eyes twitched slightly. "Sigh, it's a pity that I can't give away my wedding gift." Wei Chanxian sighed and took out something from her spatial artifact. It was a hat woven from jade spirit grass. It was a glossy green. Jiyu Tiezi's chest heaved up and down, the veins on his temples throbbing as he clenched his fists. "Ahem, all right, let's go." Kang Li coughed dryly. He seriously suspected that Wei Chanxian was deliberately adding fuel to the fire. It was only after everyone had left that the ancient prince could no longer contain his anger. A vast storm swept across heaven and earth, throwing the 8 trigrams into chaos. After a long while, Jiyu Tiezi finally calmed down. His gaze was cold and gloomy. "It's just fairy Yuan, I won't go that far. However, if this news reaches Ling Yang's ears, her impression of me will be even worse. The only way is to fight and wash away the shame. Zhun Xiaoyao, your death is the will of the immortal realm. You can't beat me, and you can't beat the heavens." Jiyu Tiezi's Dao heart was far from what ordinary people could compare to. This little setback couldn't cause his emotions to fluctuate. On the contrary, he was even more determined to kill Zhun Xiaoyao. Of course, it didn't matter what Jiyu Tiezi thought. He had lost all his face this time. On the other side, in the starry sky of the universe, 2 figures tore through the void and descended here. It was Zhun Xiaoyao and Fairy Yuan. One of Zhun Xiaoyao's arms was still wrapped around Fairy Yuan. Fairy Yuan's pretty face was slightly red. Compared to her mournful appearance at the wedding, the current fairy maiden Yuan was simply like a happy little woman. Although Zhun Xiaoyao in front of her was only a Dharma body, it was enough to show that she was not completely unmarked in Zhun Xiaoyao's heart. Jun Xiaoyaro loosened his grip and looked at Tian Niu Yuan, saying, "You're safe for the time being. However, this battle form of mine is a temporary one. If you want protection, you can go to the desolate ancient sacred temple and look for Senior Wu Hu." Hearing this, Fairy Yuan smiled, and then shook her head. "There's no need for that, young Master Jun. I may have escaped once, but I can't escape forever. I will never be able to escape from Ling Yuan's palm. No matter where I am, she can find me. What is your relationship with Ling Yang?" Jun Xiaoyaro frowned and asked. Chapter 729. When Fairy Maiden Yuan heard this, a self-deprecating smile appeared on her delicate snow-white face. She then asked faintly, "Has young Master Jun ever heard of the Clam people?" "Clam people?" Jun Xiaoyaro raised an eyebrow. Fairy Yuan continued, "Clam people are a very special race. They are very weak, but they have a special ability, which is to nurture pearls in their bodies. Therefore, many people raise and enslave clam people, and when the pearls in their bodies mature, they cut open their bellies to retrieve the pearls. Although I am not a clam person, my situation is not much different. Ling Yang and I are two souls in one body." Hearing this, Jun Xiaoyao's eyes flashed with surprise. Two souls in one body meant that there were two souls in one body. This was a very rare situation. Generally speaking, it could occur when a fetus was pregnant. Under normal circumstances, when a baby was born, one of the souls would devour the other to strengthen itself. But there were also very rare situations where two souls coexisted in one body. Of course, in such a situation, the only way to recover was to separate one of the souls. If it worked well, a new body would be created. If it didn't, the body would be reduced to ashes. Clearly, Fairy Yuan was the former. Fairy Maiden Yuan smiled. The corners of her mouth curled up, but she looked a little sad. "Sometimes, I feel that it would have been better if I had been annihilated from the world from the very beginning, or if my soul had been extracted and I had been reduced to ashes. But no, with the foundation of Empress Wa's immortal lineage, creating a new body for me is not a big deal. But I will be enslaved by Ling Yang from now on." Hearing Fairy Yuan's words, Jun Xiaoyaro fell silent. He knew a little bit. After two souls in one body transformed, it was possible to form a primary soul and a secondary soul. Obviously, Ling Yang was the primary soul. Because not only did she occupy the main body, but that body was the extremely rare sacred body of Empress Wa. As for the fairy kite that had been separated, it was the secondary soul. Fairy Maiden Yuan also told him what happened after that. One of the wonderful things about two souls in one body was that the two souls could cultivate different martial arts at the same time. One person was equivalent to two people. However, there was one point. The primary soul could automatically learn the techniques and divine abilities that the secondary soul cultivated. However, the primary soul could choose whether or not to let the co-soul learn the techniques and abilities that it cultivated. This was also the reason why a primary soul was stronger than a secondary soul. "So, you became Ling Yang's tool?" Jun Xiaoyaro asked calmly. Fairy Maiden Yuan nodded. "That's right. Ling Yang doesn't need to learn any of my cultivation methods and abilities. Everything I do is to fulfill her wish. I'll cultivate for her and be her shadow. If she wants the information network, I'll go to the goddess lane and be the top prostitute." She discovered that there might be legacies of Nuer and Mi Fei in the ancient Doom Divine Temple of the Noggers, so she sent me there to investigate. Gu Tiezi wanted to marry her, but she wasn't willing. However, due to pressure from Empress Wa and Fushi, she let me go. Fairy Yuan's voice carried a trace of sadness and helplessness. Jun Xiaoyaro nodded. He finally understood everything. He also understood the relationship between Ling Yang, Fairy Yuan, and Gu Tiezi. If Empress Wa and Fushi wanted to work together to revive the Xian Ting, marriage was the best choice. However, Ling Yang was too proud. Or rather, she didn't even think highly of Gu Tiezi. However, the alliance of the two immortal heritages needed a bond. Therefore, Ling Yuan directly asked Fairy Yuan to go. Having two souls in one body was still within the acceptable range of Fushi immortal system. Gu Tiezi could only accept it for now. However, Jun Xiaoyaro did something like this. In other words, he had temporarily ruined the alliance of the two immortal heritages. Empress Wa's and Fuxi's immortal lineages are among the top of the 9 immortal lineages. They've both been in charge before. If they work together, they might be able to gain the support of the other immortal heritages. Jun Xiaoyaro thought. He didn't expect that a random person he saved would ruin the plans of the two immortal heritages. However, the 9 immortal heritages aren't completely united. For example, Kaiyu Immortals, Jun Xiaoyaro saw the situation of Kaiyu Immortals' lineage. They weren't completely slaves, but they were very lowly. If Xianting was re-established, and Kaiyu Immortals' lineage couldn't climb up, there was no doubt that they would become a stepping stone for Xianting. Maybe this is a breakthrough, Jun Xiaoyaro thought. Fairy Maiden Yuan then told Jun Xiaoyaro everything that had happened. Jun Xiaoyaro finally understood why Fairy Yuan said he was a fish that couldn't jump out of the river of fate. Being Ling Yang's shadow was her destiny. Is there really no way to escape? Jun Xiaoyaro frowned. Young Master Jun, are you worried about me? I'm so happy. Fairy Yuan smiled sweetly. Her jade-like hand suddenly caressed Jun Xiaoyao's frown, smoothing it out. Young Master Jun, I don't want you to be troubled because of me. No matter where I hide, Ling Yang will know in the end. There's no escape. Fairy Yuan said. She lowered her eyes like a pool of clear water, as if she had completely accepted her fate. Jun Xiaoyaro was silent. After a while, he said, no, maybe there's another way. Fairy Maiden Yuan raised her head, her beautiful eyes filled with surprise. All we have to do is suppress Ling Yuan, Jun Xiaoyaro said casually. These words stunned Fairy Yuan a little. Suppress Ling Yang? It was easy to say, but who was Ling Yang? He was the princess of Empress Wa's immortal lineage and possessed Empress Wa's sacred body. Some time ago, he had obtained Empress Wa's Heaven Heart Mantra, which Fairy Yuan found in the Temple of Doom. His strength had skyrocketed. It could be said that Ling Yang was now one of the most powerful outlawed skyprides on the ancient Ultimate Road. Even Jiyu Tiezi could not suppress Ling Yang. If he could, Ling Yang would not be so indifferent to him. What, you don't believe me? Jun Xiaoyaro said. Fairy Yuan pursed her lips and smiled. Of course I believe you. However, I have a small request. I wonder if young Master Jun can agree to it. What request? Jun Xiaoyaro asked. Young Master, can you accompany me for a while? Even if it's just an avatar, I still want to dance for you. I want to see thousands of rivers and mountains with you. After a moment of silence, Jun Xiaoyaro nodded. Anyway, his avatar would dissipate soon. It could be considered as fulfilling one of Fairy Yuan's wishes. After receiving an affirmative answer, Fairy Yuan smiled brightly. She suddenly leaned over to Jun Xiaoyao's ear and whispered softly, Young Master, do you still want to see me wearing stockings? Jun Xiaoyaro was stunned. Was he such a person? Of course. Fairy Yuan giggled. At this moment, she seemed to have completely unshackled. Like a child, she smiled beautifully and innocently. In fact, there was one more thing that Fairy Yuan did not tell Jun Xiaoyaro. That was, Ling Yuan was in control of her life and death. Fairy Yuan did not know if Ling Yang would kill her in a fit of anger after learning that she had left with Jun Xiaoyaro. I hope that moment will come a little later. Even if it's a day, 2 hours, 15 minutes, or even a moment later, it's fine. I just want to see him one more time. Fairy Yuan's beautiful eyes were filled with endless longing as she looked at the tall and handsome man in the starry sky. For a better reading experience, please visit the mobile version of the website, Book 5975. Chapter 730. In the void of the universe, a figure broke through space like a divine king strolling among the stars. With every step, Dao runes intertwined under his feet, crossing an endless distance. It was Jun Xiaoyao's true body, who was rushing to the black abyss. I see. Jun Xiaoyaro naturally learned about everything as well. All the doubts in his heart were completely resolved. 2 souls in one body. I wonder if I can use Fairy Kite to counter Ling Yang. Jun Xiaoyaro was thinking about all kinds of possibilities. Obviously, Although Ling Yang and Jiu Tiezi were both successors of immortal orthodoxies, they did not work together. Instead, they each had their own schemes. Jiu Tiezi sent the 4 heavenly kings of Xian Ting to set up a trap on the boat of destiny to plot against him. Ling Yang, on the other hand, used fairy kite to probe and understand him. These successors of immortal orthodoxies all had their own tricks. That being said, none of those schemes mattered to Zhang Xiaoyao. They were indeed more difficult to deal with than some of his previous opponents. Now that they know that I killed Kai Lai, the outside world should also know that there is nothing wrong with my body. I won't be able to catch any big fish next. I'll just rush to the black abyss at full speed. After making up his mind, Zhang Xiaoyao broke through layers of the void and rushed to the black abyss at the fastest speed. He planned to deal with Jiu Tiezi and Ling Yang after dealing with the black abyss. His battle with the successors of immortal orthodoxies had just begun. In the depths of the ancient road, in a paradise full of immortal qi, a peerless figure was wrapped in dense immortal light. In front of her, a beautiful woman with a fair face was standing with her hands by her side. It was Sakura. Interesting, really interesting. I actually feel a little sorry for Jiu Tiezi now. The peerless figure's voice was as pleasant as the sounds of nature. Your Highness, but it seems that Zhang Xiaoyao is not too affected by the cursed blood. His strength is unfathomable, Sakura said solemnly. Even a magical clone possessed such strength, giving off an extremely oppressive feeling. It was hard to imagine how powerful Zhang Xiaoyao was. That Zhang Xiaoyao is not only strong, but also good at scheming. That idiot Kai Lai is the fish that took the bait. However, Tenyu Yuan dared to go against my will. Sakura, do you think I should make her disappear? Sakura doesn't dare to judge. You can do whatever you want. In any case, Carter is nothing more than a chess piece in your hands, Sakura said respectfully. Following a chuckle, the figure slowly stood up and walked out from the dense celestial light. Ling Yang was wearing a snow-white, glazed dress. The hem of the dress was cut open at the base of her legs, revealing her snow-white, smooth, and delicate long legs. Her face was surprisingly similar to fairy kite's. However, compared to fairy kite, Ling Yang's exquisite features carried a supreme, noble, and cold aura. She was like an unreachable celestial phoenix that could only be admired from afar and not touched. It was as if looking at her more than once was a kind of blasphemy. As she raised her eyebrows, she carried the cold beauty of a celestial queen. Around her, all kinds of Tao petals, celestial orbits, and other strange scenes appeared. She was like a celestial queen standing in the middle of heaven and earth, looking down at the world with cold eyes. Your Highness. Sakura bowed. Ling Yang had been cultivating in seclusion. Was she finally going to make a move now? Do you think that Zhang Xiaoyao will be restrained if I threaten him with Tenyu Yuan's life? Ling Yang asked. Sakura thought for a moment and said, Sakura thinks that Tenyu Yuan will take the initiative to kill herself if that is the case. Don't forget that if I don't want her to, Tenyu Yuan won't be able to die even if she wants to. What do you think Zhang Xiaoyao will do? Sakura thought for a bit longer this time. She shook her head and said, Sakura can't see through Zhang Xiaoyao. When he was on the desolate planet, he killed many people for the sacred body. He's a very loyal person. But sometimes, he's also terrifyingly cold, as if all living things are just fleeting clouds in front of him. Sakura can't see through such a man. That's why I didn't act rashly. People who can't see through are the most dangerous. As Ling Yang spoke, she slowly opened her hand and the arch mark of proving truths floated in it. If Ling Yang merged with the arch mark of proving truths, her strength would skyrocket again. But she didn't do that directly. She didn't want to be treated as a chess piece. Even if the chess piece was the will of the heavenly path. And this was a game between Zhang Xiaoyao and the heavenly path. If she was treated as a chess piece, wouldn't it mean that she was inferior to Zhang Xiaoyao? Princess, are you going to attack Zhang Xiaoyao next? Sakura asked. There was a hint of worry in her eyes. In the past, when facing Ling Yang's enemies, Sakura only felt pity in her heart. But now, she was worried about Ling Yang. After all, Zhang Xiaoyao was far too powerful and unfathomable an opponent. I will definitely attack, But not now. By the way, has the bloodline of the Hades made any moves? Ling Yang asked about another matter. Tian Mingzi seems to have gone to the Black Abyss, Sakura said. The Black Abyss. I heard that it's an ancient and dangerous place related to the legendary underworld. If I can get the inheritance of the underworld, there won't be much suspense for me to ascend to the position of young empress, Ling Yang thought and said. Although the underworld didn't appear in the mortal world. But it was known as the Xian Ting in the dark, and its foundation was definitely strong. I'm going to the Black Abyss. Also, don't forget to continue collecting information about Jun Xiaoyao. With that, Ling Yang waved her hand, and a crack appeared in the void. Her figure gracefully stepped into it. Looking at Ling Yang's back, Sakura was a little distressed. I'm afraid there's no trace of Jun Xiaoyao now. This is really difficult. Ever since Jun Xiaoyao left the desolate planet, except for a few people like Guardian Wu, no one else knew that Jun Xiaoyao's destination was the Black Abyss. Time flew by. A year passed in the blink of an eye. Jun Xiaoyao finally approached the 90th checkpoint of the ancient road. He didn't enter the city, but went into the depths of the universe. The Black Abyss was a dangerous place. Even the geniuses who had reached the 90th checkpoint wouldn't go near it. At most, they would wander around the nearby area. Jun Xiaoyao looked into the distance and saw that at the edge of the universe in front of him, there was a huge crack in the abyss that seemed to extend endlessly. There were all kinds of void storms raging at the edge, and even saints had to be careful when entering. Those below the saint realm might even be torn apart by the void storms if they entered. Some powerful geniuses only dared to search for some incomplete opportunities at the edge of the Black Abyss. They could find half of a broken page or a piece of immortal gold the size of a fingernail. Hey, that person is. Suddenly, some geniuses saw a blurry figure in white moving like a shadow and entering the Black Abyss. Who is it? How dare he barge into the Black Abyss and disregard his own life? Many people were stunned. In the next moment, they saw a ferocious spatial storm suddenly engulfing the white-clothed figure. Some geniuses shook their heads slightly, but most of them looked indifferent. There was nothing they could do if he wanted to die. However, before they could think about it, they were stunned to see that the blurry figure waved his sleeve and dispersed the void storm. He stepped into the Black Abyss calmly. Who is this? Some geniuses asked in a daze. Chapter 731. Jun Xiaoyao entered the Black Abyss. At the edge of the Black Abyss, there was an endless void storm. To the rest, it was a great threat. But to Jun Xiaoyao, it was not even a disturbance. Although this Black Abyss is not listed in the 7 incredible worlds, it is related to the former underworld after all, so it can't be underestimated. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were deep. The underworld was very mysterious and had always been low-key, known as the Xian Ting of the dark. Since ancient times, not many people have known about the underworld. There's no sign in prompt yet. It seems that I still need to go deeper into the Black Abyss. Jun Xiaoyao muttered to himself. It took 2 hours for Jun Xiaoyao to completely pass through the void storm at the edge of the Black Abyss. And the next scene surprised Jun Xiaoyao. In front of him, there was a large amount of grey fog rolling. The fog was as thick as mercury, but also like liquid, and there was thunder and lightning flashing from time to time. At the same time, Jun Xiaoyao also felt a powerful and strange gravitational force pulling him towards the sea of grey fog. Magnetism Qi. Jun Xiaoyao was surprised. This was an extremely rare force of nature. Even compared to the chaos energy, the Xianhuang Mother Qi, and so on, it was not much worse. Magnetism Qi had many attributes such as void, gravity, thunder, and lightning. No wonder it is difficult to go deep into the Black Abyss. Not to mention the void storm at the edge, even the magnetism sea in front of me is difficult to cross without enough ability or special means. For others, this magnetism sea was definitely difficult to cross. It could be said to be a natural moat. But for Jun Xiaoyao, it was nothing. He didn't even need the protection of the myriad Qi cauldron. He just relaxed his body and was directly pulled over by the magnetic force. Boom. As soon as he entered the magnetism sea, Jun Xiaoyao felt as if he was suppressed by 10,000 ancient mountains. The weight of the magnetism chi was not much weaker than the myriad chi. And it also had additional attributes such as gravity, thunder, and magnetism. Zhang Xiaoyao's body was shaking, and his blood was surging. He resisted the magnetism chi with his body. This was something that ordinary people could not imagine. Even if it was a saint, if he did not circulate his cultivation to resist or had the protection of a treasure, he would absolutely be immediately crushed into a bloody pulp by the origin magnetic chi. For me, this is also an opportunity. I can use the primordial magnetic chi to temper my body and cultivate the 3,000 Sumeru worlds. Perhaps I can even condense another strand of immortal chi. Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes became brighter and brighter. Since the myriad origin chi could be condensed into immortal chi. In that case, could the boundless primordial magnetic chi here also condense into a strand of immortal chi? In other words, it was difficult to find any place on the ancient path, or even the entire nine heavens immortal realm that had such a huge amount of primordial magnetic chi. Since he thought of this, Zhang Xiaoyao immediately began to act. He immediately activated the God-engulfing demonic art. More than 100 vortexes of various sizes appeared around him. The surrounding origin magnetic chi surged like a tide as it was absorbed and refined. Cultivating the Sumeru world within one's body required various types of rare energy. At the moment, Zhang Xiaoyao had an inexhaustible supply of energy. The sixth Sumeru world was formed. Following it was the seventh, the eighth. On one hand, Zhang Xiaoyao was cultivating the Sumeru world. On the other hand, he was also condensing the immortal chi. As time gradually passed, the amount of primordial magnetic chi he devoured kept increasing. However, compared to the primordial magnetic ocean, it was only a drop in the ocean. A month was gone. Grayish mystical chi gradually appeared on the surface of Zhang Xiaoyao's body, bringing with it the power of lightning and magnetism. It was Zhang Xiaoyao's 12th immortal chi, the primordial magnetic immortal chi. As the 12th immortal chi was condensed, Zhang Xiaoyao's strength improved further. He continued to break through his limits. The Sumeru world in his body had also condensed 36 Sumeru worlds without him knowing. Even though it was only 100th of the total number of Sumeru worlds. However, it was still a significant improvement compared to the previous 5 Sumeru worlds. Zhang Xiaoyao even felt like every move he made was accompanied by the power of the 36 Sumeru worlds. He could easily shatter an ancient planet with life with a flick of his finger. It seems like I'm almost at my limit. He felt that the speed of cultivating the Sumeru worlds in his body had slowed down greatly. Zhang Xiaoyao knew that he could not cultivate the Sumeru worlds by devouring primordial magnetic chi endlessly. Besides, the harvest was already enough. In the depths of the black abyss, even if there is no other harvest, just the primordial magnetic immortal chi and the Sumeru worlds are worth the trip. Zhang Xiaoyao smiled slightly. The next moment, Zhang Xiaoyao's expression suddenly froze. He noticed that there was an aura approaching from outside the black abyss. His gaze darkened as he retreated and quietly hid in the depths of the primordial magnetic ocean. If Zhang Xiaoyao restrained his aura, it would be difficult for ordinary supremes to detect him. A figure in a black robe took out a pitch-black umbrella and opened it above his head to help resist the power of the primordial magnetic ocean. It was a young man with a handsome face. However, his face was pale without the slightest trace of blood. It was not that he was lacking in energy or anything. It was as if he was born this way. He even looked a little like a lifeless dead man's face. He is. Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes flashed in the dark. If I'm not wrong, he should be under the primordial magnetic ocean. But it's strange, why do I feel that the primordial magnetic ocean seems to be a little thinner? The black-robed man murmured, but did not think much of it. In his understanding, no one would joke around with their life in such a dangerous place. After all, the primordial magnetic ocean was boundless. No one knew where the bottom was. If he did not have a plan in mind, he would not have gone so deep. As the black-robed man spoke, he went straight into the primordial magnetic ocean. In the dark, Zhang Xiaoyao thought, it's him, Tian Mingzi of the Nether King bloodline. Zhang Xiaoyao sensed an aura similar to the underworld prince on him. It was just that Tian Mingzi was much, much stronger than the underworld prince. Interesting. Could it be that the Nether King bloodline is related to the underworld? Jun Xiaoyaro did not have a good impression of the Nether King bloodline. The Nether King bloodline had also interfered in the War of Immortality. Just as Jun Xiaoyaro was about to follow and find out what was going on, his footsteps paused again. In the misty origin magnetic sea, there were actually a few more hidden auras that concealed their auras as they stealthily followed behind. Although those auras were very hidden and difficult to detect, how could they escape Jun Xiaoyao's perception? Moreover, Jun Xiaoyao also sensed that there was a hidden aura that was particularly strong. It seems that I'm not the only one who wants to be a fisherman. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Jun Xiaoyao could detect their auras. But they could not detect Jun Xiaoyao's aura. And there was that particularly strong aura. It gave Jun Xiaoyao a faint sense of familiarity. It was not a familiarity of an acquaintance, but a similar aura to her. If it's really you, then I'll settle a score with you. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were cold. Chapter 732. The Black Abyss had many natural barriers. Just the outer void storm was enough to stop 80% of the heaven's prides. And the origin magnetic sea in the middle was even more like a natural chasm, causing people to be daunted at the sight of it. Tian Mingzi, dressed in a black robe, opened a pitch-black umbrella and crossed the magnetic sea. Not everyone was as ferocious as Jun Xiaoyao, who was able to traverse the magnetite sea with his physical body. This went on for a full month. It was hard to imagine that the magnetic sea was so deep and vast. Even some of the prodigies who had the ability to travel in the essence-fused sea would have doubts about whether there was an end to this endless journey after such a long time. But Tian Mingzi's expression was as usual, without the slightest change. Finally, a month later, there was a deafening roar coming from the magnetic sea ahead. Looking around, there was an incomparably huge eye of the sea, located in it. Deep, wide, and dark, like a giant pitch-black mouth, swallowing everything. A person in front of this giant eye was as small as a speck of dust. It was hard to imagine that in the magnetic sea of the Black Abyss, there would be such a shocking giant eye of the magnetic sea. Ordinary heaven's prides would be terrified and panic at the sight of it. It really is here. Tian Mingzi's eyes flashed. This was the same as what he knew, what was recorded in the ancient books. Tian Mingzi did not hesitate and directly entered the eye of the void. Then, the few hidden auras also disappeared into it one by one. Finally, Jun Xiaoyao entered. As soon as they entered the eye of the void, the magnetic chi finally disappeared. They seemed to have come to a cold and silent universe, where the stars were dry and lonely. All kinds of star dust were motionless as if forbidden. Only after Tian Mingzi's arrival, the air current set off caused the dust to drift. Tian Mingzi continued to go deeper, and the auras in the dark also silently followed behind. Jun Xiaoyaro was also looking at this space in the dark. He understood that Tian Mingzi must know something to come here. After traveling for a distance, in front of them was an incomparably vast continent, suspended in the silent space, like a dead underworld. Tian Mingzi stepped on this underworld and swept through it. The entire underworld was dead silent as well. There was no sign of any living being. Towards the back, there was suddenly an incomparably huge shadow, like a mountain range lying horizontally in the middle. It was a gigantic skeletal dragon. He seemed to have died many eras ago. The skeletal dragon was still wrapped in thick chains, as if it had been forcefully trapped here. In the dark, Jun Xiaoyao's eyes flashed. Previously, he had heard of some legends about dragons being locked under the sea, but he didn't expect it to be true. Finally found it. Tian Mingzi's expression suddenly surged with a touch of excitement. He stepped into the air. Behind the skeletal dragon, there was a tall, dark stone door. The stone door was ancient and deep, with a faint ripple of reincarnation, giving it a mysterious appearance. Tian Mingzi took a deep breath and walked in front of the stone door. But at this moment, Tian Mingzi suddenly stopped and said in a cold voice, "Come out." As soon as he finished speaking, the surroundings were still deathly silent. Tian Mingzi sneered and said, "Not coming out? Haha, then you guys just came for nothing. Aya, looks like this saint's concealment ability is still not enough. A sigh with some helplessness sounded. A man in khaki armor sighed and revealed his figure from the darkness. Holy Land First, one of the 8 saints of the ancient Orchid sect. Tian Mingzi's eyes narrowed slightly. This Holy Land First was a powerful prodigy second only to Sheng Tianyi. Tian Mingzi said, and? In another direction, a man in purple appeared. He looked like a human, but there were countless purple threads wrapped around his body, branded with special Dao laws. You are the 8 transformations celestial silkworm of the celestial silkworm valley. Tian Mingzi was surprised, but he also heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. If that 9 transformations celestial silkworm came, it would really not be easy to deal with. After Holy Land First and the 8 transformations celestial silkworm appeared, Tian Mingzi did not say anything. Clearly, he did not detect any other auras. In the dark, Zhun Xiaoyaro revealed a look of surprise. It was very normal that Tian Mingzi and the rest could not sense him. But he did not expect that they did not sense the other aura either. Interesting, Zhun Xiaoyaro decided to wait and see. Tian Mingzi, looks like you know some of the situation in the Black Abyss. Holy Land First looked straight ahead. So what if I know? So what if I don't know? You guys tailing behind like this, looks like you're up to no good, Tian Mingzi said with a calm expression. Tell us the secret under the Black Abyss. Also, just what lucky chances and treasures are behind this stone door? The 8 transformations celestial silkworm said indifferently. The 2 of you, just who wants to obtain the lucky chances? Tian Mingzi turned his head sideways and asked. No need to instigate. Although we're not on the same side, the target is you right now. You better tell us honestly, Holy Land First said. Who? Do you guys really think that I'm afraid of you all? Tian Mingzi suddenly laughed, nether energy surging all over his body. No matter how powerful you are, you can only deal with one of us, Holy Land First said calmly. Is that so? Then what about adding this? As Tian Mingzi said, he suddenly took out a black talisman. He bit the tip of his tongue, and a drop of blood fell on the talisman. Immediately, the black talisman released a wave of black energy that surged into the skeletal dragon. In an instant, the skeletal dragon that was originally as silent as a mountain suddenly began to tremble, as if an ancient great evil had awakened. A Holy Lord level aura spread out. However, perhaps it was because the skeletal dragon had lived for too long. Although its aura was at the Holy Lord level, its strength was only at the Great Saint level at most. Even so, it was enough to make Holy Land First and the 8 transformations celestial silkworm's expression change. The Great Saint level skeletal dragon was also a great threat to them. Kill. Tian Mingzi's eyes were cold. The Nether King bloodline was originally cold-blooded and cruel. He naturally wouldn't let the 2 people tailing him off so easily. Next, a great battle began. One had to admit that Tian Mingzi, Holy Land First, and the 8 transformation celestial silkworm were all top prodigies. In addition to the Great Saint level skeletal dragon. The battle was very intense. Magic power raged like a storm, the surrounding ground cracked, and the mountains were all turned into dust. If the skeletal dragon wasn't there, it wasn't impossible for the 2 of them to suppress Tian Mingzi. Unfortunately, Tian Mingzi had already calculated it. Why would he work for others for nothing? Tian Mingzi once again brought out the demon-slaying formation and combined it with the skeletal dragon to kill Holy Land First and the 8 transformations celestial silkworm. After a great battle, Tian Mingzi was also somewhat exhausted. Without the skeletal dragon's cooperation, it was impossible for Tian Mingzi to kill the 2 of them. After all, everyone was more or less on the same level. It was normal to win or lose, but it was difficult to determine life and death. If you want to pick the fruits of my labor, you have to see if you have the life to do it. Tian Mingzi sneered. He turned to look at the stone door behind him with a solemn look in his eyes. Only he knew how dangerous the stone door was. It was the most dangerous place in the underworld to train one's heart. Even if there was a slim chance of survival, it was still underestimating the danger level. Even if Tian Mingzi knew some details, he still needed to be fully prepared before he dared to open it. Just as Tian Mingzi was about to prepare, a female voice that was as pleasant as the sound of nature, but with a sense of majesty, sounded. Tian Mingzi, You've really let this consort watch a good show. Hearing this voice, ordinary men would definitely be intoxicated. But Tian Mingzi instantly felt a chill invade his body, and his whole body turned cold. He turned his body stiffly. A beautiful figure with radiant light and various strange phenomena revealed her true body. Chapter 733. Flowers rained down from the sky. All kinds of auspicious beasts appeared, as if a female immortal was about to descend to the world. A woman dressed in a snow-white glazed dress revealed her true body from the void. She was noble and beautiful, beyond compare. Her dress was cut at the base of her legs, revealing her slender and straight legs. Her face was exquisite, and her facial features were perfect as if they were carved by the heavens. Her starry eyes were cold and indifferent. Her skin was as smooth as jade, and her delicate body flowed with immortal light. All kinds of visions, star orbits, and patterns of the great Tao surrounded her body. She gave off the feeling of a goddess of creation. It was Princess Ling Yang. Tian Mingzi's heart trembled when he saw Ling Yang, who was like a goddess descending to the world. Of course, he wasn't trembling because of Ling Yang's beauty. He didn't expect that the high and mighty Xianting princess would target him. And with Ling Yang's strength, if she wanted to hide, it would be difficult for him to detect. Kill. Tian Mingzi didn't even want to say a word. The skeletal dragon roared and attacked Ling Yang. Ling Yang raised her eyebrows, and a cold light flashed in her eyes like the night stars. Empress Wa's immortal palm, Ling Yang used an ultimate move. She raised her slender hand, and vast Dharma power surged. She had also reached the level of a supreme sage. This was all thanks to Heavenly Maiden Yuan, who had helped Ling Yang obtain the Empress Wa's Heavenly Heart Sutra from the Naga tribe's Temple of Doom. Otherwise, Ling Yang would have to put in a lot of effort to break through to the supreme sage level. Ling Yang pressed down with her palm. A giant palm tens of thousands of feet long seemed to collapse the sky, crushing the void. At the same time, Tao patterns intertwined, sealing off all escape routes. Kaboom! A violent collision burst out, and a turbulent Dharma power storm swept out. The skeletal dragon was shattered by Ling Yang's palm, and the white bones shattered. At the same time, Tian Mingzi spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated. Demon slaying array. A terrifying killing array was formed, and countless Yin soldiers and demons appeared. Ling Yang's face was calm. She was like a woman of light from hell, and her whole body was emitting endless radiance. She formed a special seal with her hands. In the void, an endless rain of light appeared and then fell like a torrential downpour. Divine rain salvation. The void howled as the continent exploded. The power of each drop of light rain was as terrifying as a meteor, directly destroying the formation. Although Tian Mingzi was a top genius of the Nether King bloodline, in front of Ling Yang, he didn't have the slightest ability to resist. Now, I can give you a chance. Open up your mind and let me plant a slave imprint in you. You can still live, Ling Yang said. Planting a slave imprint on a prodigy of the Nether King bloodline was something no one else would dare to think about. Even if he had the ability to do so, he would still be afraid of the revenge of the Nether King bloodline. But Ling Yang was different. With her status, she was not afraid of any revenge at all. We can cooperate. Tian Mingzi clenched his teeth and said. In fact, he had other plans in mind. But for now, he could only use this to appease Ling Yang. Cooperate? Are you worthy? How many men in the world are qualified to oppose me? Ling Yang's eyes were cold and indifferent as she said coldly. In the dark, Jun Xiaoyaro watched and listened silently. He finally understood why Jiu Tiezi pursued Ling Yang but failed. This woman was too arrogant. Even a little too much. Is this the true power of women in the fantasy world? Jun Xiaoyaro muttered in his heart. Ling Yang, don't go too far. Tian Mingzi's face was very ugly. This was the first time he felt so powerless. Looks like there's no room for discussion. I never talk nonsense. Ling Yang struck out again. 10,000 Dao patterns spread out and the void exploded. Magic power surged and directly exploded Tian Mingzi's entire body. After dealing with Tian Mingzi, Ling Yang frowned slightly. What's behind this stone door? Should I explore directly or come back after some preparation? Ling Yang said to herself. She didn't think it was a big deal. With strength, nothing was a problem. It's about time. In the dark, Zhang Xiaoyao saw this and thought to himself. He had waited long enough. If he didn't intervene, he might really become a spectator. Zhang Xiaoyao vaguely felt that there must be a great opportunity behind this stone door. And there was no sign in notification in his mind. This meant that he hadn't really entered the deepest part of the black abyss. Behind the stone door might be the secret of the black abyss. After making up his mind, Zhang Xiaoyao didn't hesitate and stepped out. Who is it? Ling Yang sensed it in an instant and looked back with a sharp gaze. When she saw Zhang Xiaoyao, who was dressed in white and exuded an air of indifference, the look in her eyes changed imperceptibly. There was surprise and surprise. The surprise was that she didn't expect Zhang Xiaoyao to come here. The surprise was that even she didn't sense Zhang Xiaoyao's aura. Should I say it's the first time we meet, or should I say, we meet again? Zhang Xiaoyao said indifferently. This meant that Ling Yang and Fairy Yuan were in one body with two souls. Zhang Xiaoyao, I didn't expect to see you so soon. I thought we would only meet at the end of the ancient road. Ling Yang's voice was equally flat. She admitted that Zhang Xiaoyao was a little beyond her expectations. It was the first time she saw a man of the opposite sex who was no worse than her in appearance, temperament, and strength. In fact, it was even a little better. This made Ling Yang, who had been in a high position for a long time, feel a little strange. Of course, that was all. She was different from other women who had a good impression of Zhang Xiaoyao at first sight. In Ling Yang's heart, she had long regarded Zhang Xiaoyao as an opponent and an enemy. After all, one of them was the princess of Xianting, and the other was the descendant of the Zhang family. They were destined to fight for their respective forces, and they were sworn enemies. Zhang Xiaoyao was also a little surprised. It was the first time he saw a woman who could be so calm when facing him, and respond in the same flat tone. He felt like he had met his match. This feeling made Zhang Xiaoyao feel very fresh. What, Zhang Xiaoyao, are you going to seek justice for Fairy Yuan? Ling Yang asked. By suppressing you, I can return her freedom, Zhang Xiaoyao said. Oh, it seems that the rumored son of God of the Zhang family, who has passed through thousands of flowers without a single leaf touching him, will also have a day when he truly falls in love. Ling Yang's eyes flashed. If Zhang Xiaoyao fell in love with Fairy Yuan, wouldn't that be equivalent to falling in love with her? What if I say that I'm just pure and kind, and I'm willing to help others? Zhang Xiaoyao said indifferently. This Ling Yang was testing him. However, it was impossible for Ling Yuan to see through him. Do you know that I can control Fairy Yuan's life and death at will? Ling Yang slowly raised her jade-like hand. Her fingers were as slender as a scallion root. Is that so? But for now, let's pay attention to what we should pay attention to. Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes flashed with a strange light, and he changed the topic. Fairy Yuan didn't tell him that Ling Yang could control her life and death. Was she afraid that he would be worried? Ling Yang's gaze also turned to the stone door. She didn't want to fight to the death with Zhang Xiaoyao now. It was meaningless. Just as the two of them were silent for a moment, sizing up the stone door, a hoarse voice with a hint of vengeance suddenly sounded. I didn't expect that besides Ling Yang, Zhang Xiaoyao would also come. Just right, I'll let you two go to hell together. Zhang Xiaoyao and Ling Yang's eyes turned at the same time. The one who spoke was the already dead Tian Mingzi. The Netherworld King Bloodline's reincarnation technique? Ling Yang immediately reacted. Die. Tian Mingzi took out a key-like thing and poured his magic power into it. The stone door began to rumble and tremble, and then suddenly opened. Rich reincarnation power filled the air. A terrifying suction force erupted, and instantly entangled Ling Yang and Zhang Xiaoyao. Behind the stone door was a colorful illusion and nothingness, as if there were countless worlds floating and entangling inside. This is the reincarnation eye of the underworld. It was used in the ancient underworld to test heaven-defying geniuses with the potential to become the Netherworld King. I wonder if you have the ability to do so? Tian Mingzi sneered. Ling Yang killed him once, and he lost his only chance to use the reincarnation technique. The Jun family also had conflicts with the Netherworld King bloodline, and they were destined to face each other in the future. Now that he could take care of two powerful opponents at once, Tian Mingzi couldn't be more happy. The princess of Xianting and the son of God of the Jun family had died because of him. No one else could do this. Chapter 734. The reincarnation eye of the underworld behind the stone door released an endless and terrifying suction force. The wisps of reincarnation power seemed to have turned into tentacles, entangling Jun Xiaoyaro and Ling Yang. Tian Mingzi, you're courting death. Ling Yang's phoenix eyes flashed with a cold light. Her delicate body shook, and she unleashed her magic power, wanting to kill Tian Mingzi. But the reincarnation eye of the underworld was terrifying. Once entangled, there was almost no possibility of escape. One could only be sucked into it and go through the trials of reincarnation. This was the trial of the underworld. Even someone as strong as Ling Yang couldn't escape. Ling Yang, Jun Xiaoyaro, you can disappear in peace. Seeing Ling Yang and Jun Xiaoyaro being slowly pulled into the reincarnation eye, Tian Mingzi's eyes revealed a hint of pride. Tian Mingzi could use the two of them as asking stones to test the waters. After that, he could enter safely through other methods. Jun Xiaoyao's body was also entangled by the reincarnation power of the reincarnation eye. He looked at Tian Mingzi with a hint of coldness in his eyes. Those who dared to scheme against him usually didn't end well. At the moment when Jun Xiaoyaro and Ling Yuan were pulled into the Rinnegan, Jun Xiaoyaro was shocked. Jun Xiaoyaro used his fingers as a sword, and an illusory 9-leaf sword grass appeared behind him. Grass symbol sword technique. Swoosh. An unparalleled, extremely fast sword light cut through the void. In a split second. The smug smile on Tian Mingzi's face suddenly froze. A thin line of blood appeared on his neck. Then, with a gurgle, his head fell to the ground. At the same time, his primordial spirit was shattered by the sword energy. Seeing this scene, Ling Yang's eyes flashed with an undetectable surprise. Even she couldn't use any means. Jun Xiaoyaro could actually make a move and kill Tian Mingzi. What Ling Yang didn't know was, not only did Jun Xiaoyaro have the strength to kill Tian Mingzi, he could even break away from the Rinnegan. The reason was simple. Not only did Jun Xiaoyaro cultivate the reincarnation immortal qi, but the supreme drum also had the reincarnation divine ability. Therefore, it is impossible for Rinnegan to bind him. However, Jun Xiaoyaro did not choose to leave. There was no sign in notification from the system yet. The reason he came to Black Abyss was to find out the truth. Therefore, it was impossible for him to leave just like that. Even without Tian Mingzi's intervention, Jun Xiaoyaro would have found a way to enter the Eye of Samsara. Ling Yang misunderstood, thinking that Jun Xiaoyaro was like her, unable to get rid of the restriction of Rinnegan. Right now, Ling Yang and Jun Xiaoyaro were both completely drawn into the Rinnegan. That stone door was once again shut. Just as Ling Yang and Jun Xiaoyaro disappeared from the Eye of Samsara. A faint voice came from an ancient building that looked like a heavenly palace filled with immortal light. Ling Yang's aura has disappeared from the ancient road of ultimate. It seems that she has found some clues about the underworld. We don't have to worry. Ling Yang has her own ideas. Our Empress Wa's immortal lineage depends on her in this generation. But the only pity is that her shadow is too insensible. Our cooperation with the Fuxi immortal lineage has not been reached for the time being. It's okay, there's no hurry. Heroes are born in troubled times. When the foreign realm is completely stirred up, the immortal realm will naturally need a hero. And our Xianting is that hero. On the other side, in the Jun family. The 18th ancestor and the others also noticed that Jun Xiaoyao's aura had disappeared. It was as if he had escaped into some unknown place. We don't have to worry about anything. Xiaoyaro is even more outstanding than his father. We old guys are already numb to the news from the ancient road. The 16th ancestor chuckled. Jun Xiaoyao's glorious deeds on the Emperor Road and the ancient road of ultimate were all known to the Jun family. They could not find any fault with him at all. Jun Xiaoyao's outstanding performance did not cause them to worry too much about him. Yes, but most importantly, Xiaoyao's character is not as selfless as his father. This is a good thing. Sometimes, Being a hero comes with a price. The 18th ancestor sighed. I heard that the foreign realms movements are getting bigger and bigger. The 16th ancestor said in a slightly serious tone. That's right. So, the final test of the ancient road of ultimate this time might be more difficult than before. Of course, with Xiaoyao's ability, it won't be a big problem. Hihi, this is a great opportunity for our Jun family. Heroes are born in troubled times. The 16th ancestor smiled. It was obvious that the Supreme Xian Ting, the Jun family, and even the other ancient forces wanted to be heroes. This kind of hero was not just a hero who was fearless of sacrifice. It was a hero who dominated the immortal realm, in the eye of reincarnation in the Black Abyss. Jun Xiaoyao and Ling Yang were trapped in it. Around them, countless grotesque scenes appeared. It was as if there were countless worlds entangling, stacking, and merging around them. A terrifying and boundless power seemed to be tearing their souls apart. Even someone as strong as Ling Yang felt his primordial spirit trembling violently. It was extremely painful, as if it was being torn apart. Jun Xiaoyao, I think we should work together for the time being. Ling Yang calmed her mind and said. Work together? I didn't expect the High and Mighty Her Highness to want to work with others. Jun Xiaoyao said with a fake smile. Old Yin-Yang was speechless. Ling Yang's expression was also slightly unnatural, but she still said in a deep voice, Tian Mingzi is not qualified, but I have to admit that you are. Admit? Does this son of God need your acknowledgement? Believe it or not, this son of God can leave safely without you. Jun Xiaoyao said indifferently. From birth until now, no one dared to be arrogant in front of him. Not even Ling Yuan could do it. Feeling the tearing pain in her primordial spirit, Ling Yang gritted her teeth and said, If I die, Fairy Yuan will die immediately. Is that okay? Are you threatening me? Jun Xiaoyao's face was still cold. It's not a threat, but a cooperation. At least hold on for a while. Ling Yang's tone softened. There was no other way. The situation was stronger than her. The power in the eye of reincarnation was too strong. It would be difficult for her to hold on alone. Remember, don't pretend in front of me. Jun Xiaoyao said coldly. He still agreed. Ling Yang nodded and released the power of her primordial spirit. The power of her primordial spirit was golden, like the primordial spirit of a goddess. It seems that she also has a special primordial spirit. Jun Xiaoyao thought. He also released the power of his primordial spirit. The vast power of the primordial spirit released by Jun Xiaoyao even surprised Ling Yang. This vast soul power was not much worse than that of a supreme being. The power of the two people's primordial spirits fused and entangled together, forming a barrier to resist the tearing force of the eye of reincarnation. Jun Xiaoyao didn't feel anything, but Ling Yang felt very uncomfortable. Although it was only the fusion of the primordial spirits, Ling Yang felt uncomfortable and strange. This is only temporary, Jun Xiaoyao. When we get out of the eye of reincarnation, the competition between you and me will officially begin. Ling Yang guarded her mind and said secretly. Suddenly, a blazing light appeared in front of them. Jun Xiaoyao and Ling Yang finally came to the end of the passage of the eye of reincarnation. Under the illumination of the blazing light, they completely lost their consciousness and fell into some unknown place. Chapter 735. In the bamboo forest in the mountains, a gentle breeze blew. A 15 or 16-year-old youth opened his eyes slightly and rubbed them in a daze. The youth was nameless and had no parents. He was raised by a blind fortune-teller since he was young. The blind fortune-teller said that he was the reincarnation of a god and would become a great person in the future. The youth scoffed. He did not think that a god would be willing to reincarnate as an unwanted bastard. Although the blind fortune-teller did not give the youth wealth, he taught him martial arts, allowing him to kill a tiger with one punch when he was only a teenager. Later, the blind fortune-teller died of illness. The youth felt that he would not have any relatives anymore. Later, the youth saw her. He saw the bloodstains on her body, the bloodstains on her face, and the despair on her face. Behind her were the people who wanted to kill her. For some reason, when he saw the girl's eyes that were still clear despite being covered in blood, he subconsciously made a move. Finally, The youth, who was injured, came in front of the girl and stretched out his hand. "What is your name?" "My name is Xiaoji Yuan," the girl said timidly. "Then follow me." The youth held the girl's hand as if nothing had happened. The girl held it tightly and did not let go. She followed him for 3 years. During these 3 years, the girl encountered countless assassination attempts, and the youth helped her block countless of them. The youth became stronger and stronger, but the injuries on his body also increased. 3 years later, a group of people found the girl and wanted to take her away. The youth looked on silently and did not say a word. Before leaving, the girl jumped into the youth's arms and kissed his face. "I will come back to find you. Xiaoji Yuan will become very, very strong. I will not let you get hurt again." The girl vowed. She stuffed a sachet into the youth's chest where his heart was. "Never forget me." She left. The youth was filled with hatred and even felt that he was betrayed. He picked up the sachet and wanted to throw it away, but in the end, he still kept it. Later, the youth met a young master who went into the mountains to hunt and was almost eaten by a white tiger. He killed the white tiger with 1 punch. At the same time, he looked at the young master with disdain. "You are so useless. Don't go into the mountains to hunt. Hello, I am the 13th prince of Northern Liang. Thank you for saving me." The young master laughed happily. From then on, the Northern Liang kingdom had another legend. A general who had no name, but who had shocked everyone. 10 years later, the Sichuan Empire attacked the Northern Liang kingdom's imperial capital. A silent figure wearing a helmet like an iron tower stood on the city wall of the imperial capital. With 30,000 soldiers, they vowed to guard the country's gates. The Empress of the Sichuan Empire personally led the troops into battle. The Northern Liang monarch has already hanged himself. "Why are you still defending?" someone shouted. That figure remained indifferent and didn't say anything. He only knew that the young master who was almost eaten by the white tiger had now died in his own hanging rope. However, he wanted to fight until the very end. Empress Sichuan covered her face with a beaded curtain. She looked at the stubborn figure in front of her and reached into the void. A sword appeared in her hand. "Once we conquer the Northern Liang kingdom, no one in this world will be able to harm us anymore," the empress muttered to herself. Poochie. Blood splattered everywhere. The sword in Empress Sichuan's hand pierced through the general's heart. "Let me see what kind of person the final backbone of the Northern Liang kingdom is." Empress Sichuan removed her general's mask. A familiar face was revealed. "Why, little Jiyuan, you are here. As expected, you have become very powerful." The general's hand trembled as he took out an item. It was a blood-stained sachet. During these 10 years, he had been at ease. The general closed his eyes. Empress Sichuan's hair was messy, and she was heartbroken. A sword to the throat. The 2 corpses leaned against each other. The blood that splattered out merged together. The first generation had ended. The lanterns were lit. A handsome manservant was secretly sizing up the beautiful courtesan in the room. She should be the most beautiful woman in this brothel. Her name was Li Yuan. Not only was she beautiful, but she also had a beautiful heart. She wasn't like other women who schemed against each other. One day, the servant accidentally knocked over a customer's wine cup and was kicked and punched by the customer. He was almost beaten to death. It was Li Yuan who stepped in. She hugged the customer and coaxed him to not be calculative. The servant lowered his head and clenched his teeth. Late at night, he didn't know where he got the courage to find Li Yuan. He hugged her and said, "I want to bring you away." Li Yuan smiled and said, "Okay, when you become the number 1 in the world, bring me away." The servant left. He met an expert and apprenticed himself to him. In 3 years, he became famous all over the world with a sword. He came to the brothel again. The courtesan was gone. He heard that she died in the house of a rich family a month ago. Before she died, she was still muttering, "Bring me away." He carried his sword and massacred the family. There were 300 people in total, and he didn't leave a single one alive. He hugged the courtesan's cold body and walked toward the sunset step by step. The second generation ended. There were many stories. There was a scholar who went to the capital to take the imperial exam who met a vixen in the middle of the night. Humans and demons were different. There was a Daoist disciple who fell in love with a demoness of the devil sect and died for love. And these people, without exception, all of them had a question in their hearts before they died. Who am I? They didn't know who they were. They only felt that they seemed to have forgotten something. They only remembered that they seemed to have seen a blurry white-clothed figure in a dream. The cycle of reincarnation after reincarnation seemed endless. The 5th generation, the 7th generation, the 20th generation, the 72nd generation, the 99 generations of reincarnation passed. Until the 100th generation. He was the eldest son of the world's #1 demon-slaying family. He was handsome and extraordinary. But his personality was cold and distant, as if he had no feelings. Exterminating demons was even more cruel. But only a few people knew. He wasn't human. Instead, he was a humanoid Daoist soldier passed down from ancient times. He thought that he might never have the feeling of love in his life. Until he met a peach blossom demon. My name is Dao Yuan. The peach blossom demon smiled charmingly. He didn't know why he didn't kill her. Perhaps it was because that smile was too bright. Dao Yuan told him that the outside world was very big, and there were endless rivers and mountains. If you want, I can accompany you to see it. Dao Yuan smiled sweetly. I'm the eldest son of the #1 demon-slaying family, he said. I'm not afraid. You're a good person. Dao Yuan smiled innocently. He was still expressionless. However, there was a faint ancient talisman slowly appearing between his eyebrows. Later, the matter of the little peach blossom demon was exposed. In the square hall of the #1 demon-slaying family, everyone asked him to kill this little peach blossom demon with his own hands. The little peach blossom demon was weak and collapsed to the ground with wounds all over her body. And she was still smiling at him. Just like when they first met, her smile was as bright as a peach blossom. I'm not afraid of death. I'm just afraid that I can't accompany you to see the rivers and mountains. Dao Yuan's face was pale as she smiled weakly. He raised the sword in his hand. He hesitated. Slash. Still not slash. His hand was trembling. At this moment, a mechanical voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Ding, congratulations to the host. You have reached the deepest part of the black abyss. Do you want to sign in? He answered subconsciously. Ding, congratulations to the host. Sign in for the 3 Generations Immortal Sutra, Future Lifeless Sutra. Boom. Accompanied by a mechanical sound. The past Amitabha Sutra, the present world Tathagata Sutra, and the future Lifeless Sutra. They completely fused into a supreme immortal sutra for cultivating the primordial spirit. The 3 Generations Immortal Sutra. At this moment, his mind instantly became clear. At the same time, the ancient talisman in his mind released boundless light. That was half of the chaotic ancient emperor's talisman, protecting his primordial spirit. The 100 Lives reincarnation test, as expected of the underworld. His gaze was cold as he looked at the weak and pitiful Dao Yuan who was lying on the ground. Ling Yang, I'm afraid you haven't woken up yet. It seems that this son of God will go first. His sword fell and killed the little peach blossom demon. Chapter 736. He had to admit that the trial of the reincarnation eyes of the underworld was indeed terrifying. After 100 reincarnations, one's consciousness would be erased, and each life would be reborn. If one failed to awaken their consciousness, they would continue to reincarnate. Until their primordial spirit was completely exhausted, they would never be able to wake up again. It was a great trial of one's will and Dao heart. The longer the reincarnation cycle, the lower the chance of waking up. In ancient times, the underworld used it to test the talents of the underworld monarch. What was the underworld monarch's level in the underworld? He was at least in the martial monarch realm. The one-armed underworld monarch worshipped by the underworld monarch tribe. The fact that Jun Xiaoyaro had passed the trial of the reincarnation eyes meant that he had the potential to achieve the martial monarch realm. However, it was not a big deal. Jun Xiaoyao's potential had long been proven. The test of the Rinnegan is indeed extraordinary. If it weren't for the Sutra of Future, I just happened to sign in and collect the complete 3 Lives Sutra, which boosted the power of my primordial spirit, it would have taken me quite some time to break free from the cycle of reincarnation, Jun Xiaoyaro thought to himself. The reason why he was able to wake up so quickly was that apart from the complete 3 Lives immortal scriptures, half of the ancient Chaos Monarch talisman was protecting his primordial spirit. With the help of the two, Jun Xiaoyaro was able to recover in such a short time. Otherwise, if Jun Xiaoyaro failed to execute the slash, he would fall into a new reincarnation cycle. After regaining his consciousness, Jun Xiaoyaro realized he was standing on a vast ocean. It was not an ordinary ocean, but the ocean of reincarnation. Every ripple on the surface of the sea reflected a scene of reincarnation. Jun Xiaoyaro could not help but recall the reincarnation pool of living things in the ancient burial ground. Wouldn't it be an ocean if it was magnified countless times? As I thought, the people in the ancient burial ground are most likely related to the underworld. The living things in the ancient burial ground are born from death. It does seem like something that only the underworld has. Jun Xiaoyaro pondered deeply. He could not help but admit that there were too many secrets in the 9 heavens immortal realm. The more he learned, the more doubts he had. Jun Xiaoyaro lowered his head slightly and saw the silhouette of a woman bobbing in the ocean. It was Ling Yang. At this moment, Ling Yang's beautiful eyes were tightly closed, and her graceful and delicate body was bobbing up and down in the waves. Every wave that hit her delicate body was a cycle of reincarnation. Jun Xiaoyaro suddenly understood. He should have also been baptized by the waves in the sea of reincarnation. Every wave was a cycle of reincarnation. Jun Xiaoyaro woke up in the 100th wave, which was also the 100th reincarnation cycle. As for Ling Yang, he was still undergoing the baptism of a new wave of reincarnation. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes turned cold when he saw the beautiful figure floating in the waves of the Samsara Sea. Kill her! At this moment, Ling Yang was wearing a snow-white glazed dress. It was wet from the tide and clung to her delicate body, outlining her seductive curves. The mountains rose and fell, the hinterland was flat, and the valleys were deep and serene. She closed her eyes and frowned, as if she was experiencing a sad dream. His expression wasn't as cold and arrogant as when he was awake. Instead, it seemed a little quiet and tranquil. Perhaps it was because Jun Xiaoyaro and Ling Yang had entered the Rinnegan together. Therefore, they had also experienced 100 lives of ill-fated love together. From little paper kite, to Li kite, and then to Dao kite. Without exception, in every life, she and Jun Xiaoyaro were in a sadomasochistic love. They loved each other so much that it was engraved in their hearts. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't feel anything about this. These sadomasochistic love were just illusions. He didn't care about it at all. It didn't hurt or itch. Jun Xiaoyaro walked in front of Ling Yang, thinking. He used his finger as a sword and casually pointed it out. Sword energy gushed out. However, when it fell on Ling Yang, it was annihilated by the waves of reincarnation. Can't I? Jun Xiaoyaro thought to himself that it might be the interference of the sea of reincarnation. The others couldn't affect the people who were going through the test. Well, if I kill her now, not only will I let Fairy Yuan die together, but I will also completely arouse the anger of Empress Wa's immortal lineage. Although my Jun family is not afraid, now is not the time for a war. Jun Xiaoyaro temporarily gave up killing Ling Yang. Anyway, he was confident that he could always suppress Ling Yang in strength. He could deal with it at any time. But he could avoid death, but he couldn't escape punishment. Ling Yang had been living behind the scenes for a long time and threatened him with Fairy Yuan. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't like to be threatened and schemed against. After thinking about it for a while, Jun Xiaoyao's gaze fell on Ling Yang's snow-white long legs that were exposed by the cut of her skirt. He seemed to have thought of something, and a dim light flashed in his eyes. A finger fell and drew a line on Ling Yang's snow-white inner thigh. Every time I defeat you, I will draw a line on your inner thigh to see if I can get a perfect character in the end. Jun Xiaoyaro looked playful. He woke up earlier than Ling Yang and passed the test of Rinnegan, which could be regarded as defeating her once. Only he, a time traveler, could think of such a punishment. drawing a perfect character on Ling Yang's thigh. It was hard to imagine how a proud woman like Ling Yang would react when she woke up and found that Jun Xiaoyaro had left a mark on her thigh. It was estimated that her expression would be wonderful. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyao's body surface was suddenly enveloped in brilliance. Hundreds of kinds of brilliance, layer upon layer. It was the 100 reincarnations that Jun Xiaoyaro had experienced. Finally, the light of this 100 reincarnations overlapped. It turned into a seed, filled with the breath of the past. This is, Jun Xiaoyaro reached out and grabbed the seed in his hand. He could feel that in his 3 lives primordial spirit, the part that belonged to the past, produced a wisp of fluctuation. Is this the reward for passing the test of Rinnegan? Jun Xiaoyaro guessed. This seed may be of great help to the shaping of his primordial spirit in the past. Let's call it the seed of the past. Jun Xiaoyaro murmured. In his 3 lives primordial spirit, the primordial spirit had already condensed and was sitting cross-legged on the flower of the great path in the middle. The primordial spirit in the past was a cloud of hazy mist. It had begun to take shape, but it had not yet condensed into a human shape. As for the primordial spirit in the future, it had not yet begun to condense. Jun Xiaoyaro had already obtained the complete version of the 3 Lives Immortal Sutra. Therefore, it was only a matter of time before he cultivated the complete 3 Lives Primordial Spirit. As for the seed of the past, it could help him to a great extent to speed up the condensation of the primordial spirit in the past. When the time came, Jun Xiaoyaro would condense the past, present, and future, the 3 primordial spirit Dharma images. His primordial spirit could be hidden in the past and manifest in the future. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens for ordinary people to destroy Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit. Unless they stepped into the long river of time and destroyed his primordial spirit from the past and future. In addition, Jun Xiaoyao also unexpectedly discovered that the curse power in his inner universe had completely dissipated. This was very surprising. Jun Xiaoyao felt that it might be because he had passed the test of Rinnegan. And Rinnegan was a product of the underworld. Perhaps after successfully passing the test, the curse was also dispelled. But I still want to know the real secret of the sacred body curse. Jun Xiaoyaro put his hands behind his back and rushed towards the end of the sea of reincarnation. And Ling Yang was still being washed by the waves of reincarnation. She was floating in the torturous love of 100 lives. Don't go, brother Jun, don't leave me, Ling Yang, with her beautiful eyes closed, murmured in the dream of reincarnation.